Meet the cereal kids are crazy for, Cthulhu's. Start your morning madness with a bowl of morning happiness.
Cthulhu sale is ongoing now. You will take part. Save up to 33% off gem bundles. You will take part.
Crazy crispity, crazy crunchity, crazy
Select chests up to 50% off. You will take part. Boosters, avatars, wards, and more up to 50% off. You will take part. Party up with up to 3 times favor. Worshippers and XP. You will take part. This is your duty.
Crazy Cthulhu-y, Cthulhu. Surgeon General's warning, Cthulhu's are not of this world and should not be ingested by children or adults over the age of 80. Gems are not included as a prize because Cthulhu's are not real. Reality is meaningless, time's a construct. Abandon all hope when you ingest Cthulhu's. Use as directed, part of balanced practice. For the crispity, crunchity, crazy crunch, get cuckoo with Cthulhu.
You will take part.
Of a balanced breakfast.
Can we take a commercial break?
Hey there, SMITE fans, Aggro here. Look, every single year, the SPL just keeps getting better. Season 7 was incredible, and in Season 8, I'm sure our players are going to take their game to the next level. But in order to do that, they're going to need the best gear they can get their hands on. And that's why I'm so excited to announce the title sponsor for Season 8 of the SPL is Alienware. Yeah, that Alienware. Our players are getting the best of the best in computer gaming. These Alienware Aurora Ryzen Edition PC setups are insane. Not only will these be the PCs that the players will compete on once we are in studio, but Alienware is also providing one for each player at their home setup to make sure their practice is as good as possible. Now let's get down to brass tacks. The specs on these Alienware Aurora Ryzen Edition desktops are amazing. An AMD Ryzen 9 16-core processor.
That's a lot of cores.
That's plenty of processing power.
Plenty of cores.
If you want to stream, this is the way to go.
I know a lot about my cores, so. I mean, Pilates, right?
64 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM.
What? Is that true?
That is true.
I mean, this thing has 64 gigs of DDR4 RAM.
Which you can do literally anything with.
Literally anything.
I've never had more than 16 gigs.
That's quadruple the amount I have at home.
And one of the hottest commodities in the PC world, an NVIDIA GeForce 3090 graphics card.
Insane how much better this is than what I have.
The best graphics you really need, Ultra, of course.
Content's gonna look good.
And what's the point of all the power if you can't see it? Players will also be using the Alienware 25-inch 240Hz monitors.
Man, when I load into scrims with this bad boy, I'm gonna feed so hard. And it's gonna be in perfect picture quality.
We are so excited to be partnering with Alienware for Season 8 of the SMITE Pro League. And the best part is, this VIP treatment, it's not just for the pros. You too can get the best possible SMITE experience. Just go to smitegame.com/Alienware and use code SMITEAW to get special discounts on some of Alienware's best products. Thanks again to Alienware. Make sure you're following them on Twitter and Instagram. That's at Alienware on both platforms. And you can join their community at alienwarearena.com.
Well, a happy Saturday and welcome to everyone watching. It is the SPL Season 8, all powered by Alienware. We're in Week 8, day number 3. I've been gone for 2 days. That was actually way more difficult for me to figure out than it should have been. And of course, we want to say thank you to our title sponsor, Alienware, for being the gear provider this year. Of course, you can go and get their amazing Aurora R10 Ryzen desktops, as well as those 25-inch 240Hz gaming monitors, and follow them on Instagram and Twitter at Alienware. Go to alienwarearena.com to get in the giveaways and more, as well as go to smitegame.com/alienware and use code SMITEAW to make sure you get all of that fantastic merchandise. My name is Gormizer. Joining me on the desk for today is going to be none other than Aggro. And Aggro, we originally were going to be on the desk all day, so nothing about that has changed, but things have shortened up for us a little bit as of today. Of course, a lot of people, you might have either seen the tweet or you've seen the announcement. We'll get into that in just a second. We still are going to be watching the Bolts take on the Valkyries, and that is a set that, even though, depending on how you look at it, for the Valkyries, not much can change realistically where they are. They're not going to playoffs. They're not necessarily looking to climb too high in the standings. For the Bolts, there is still a little bit of pressure.
Yes, they have to win this game if they want to guarantee themselves a top 2 seed, which, look, we know what the situation is with the Valkyries. We understand that they have been struggling, but this is still an important game for the Bolts coming off a tough loss yesterday here in studio to the Atlantis Leviathans. This is one that they've got to buckle down and make sure they're taking care of business. And if they play the way they should win easily.
As you saw today, Bolts, as we have mentioned, taking on the Valkyries, you have to pay attention up towards the tops. If the Bolts lose this one and the Leviathans tomorrow win versus the Scarabs, that causes a whole concept around second place for the standings. And of course, the Kings, who are sitting up right now currently tied with the Bolts, if they can win their set versus the Warriors, that is where they will be able to secure first place. But that is the key for today. The Kings versus Warriors was originally going to be the first set, but as you saw on the schedule, that has been postponed. And as you can see on SMITE Pro on Twitter, that set is postponed just to how did they say it? Extenuating. There it is.
There it is. That's how you say it.
Some words out there as we get them through. And so that game is postponed. We will be tweeting it out when we know that game is going to be taking place. So make sure that you follow SMITE Pro on Twitter, or I guess, we'll probably post it on the subreddit as well. You'll know where it's out as long as you just keep close to our socials. And so that does bring us to back to this set. Bolts versus the Valkyries, as we had mentioned, a very hefty set for the Bolts just because of the way things went yesterday. They are in a precarious spot where if things do not go well for them today, if they don't find a 2-0 or if they end up getting beaten, then depending on the Leviathan Scarabs tomorrow, they might not be in the top 2.
Yeah, it could be problematic for them. So they got to make sure they buckle down. And even winning 2-0 is important here for the Bolts, because if they end up tied with the Kings, because those two went 1-1 in their head-to-head, it comes down to that plus-minus.
Yep.
So you want to come in and make sure you're taking care of business. Don't mess around. There's a time and place for trying new picks, but making sure we're trying new picks that we're really sure are going to work and make sure that we find the 2-0 victory here.
And, speaking of new picks, things that they were playing specifically yesterday that we've not seen as often, it comes out of the solo lane to me, which is more or less the fact that they locked in the Cerberus. They were playing it. We're used to seeing your Cucullins, your King Arthurs, a lot of these really strong warriors coming out of Haddocks. But he was willing to play the Cerberus, got banned against him even. So it showcases, I think, a little more... I don't know, I guess Godpool variety coming out from the solo lane for him.
Yeah, I think that adding, some different dimensions to what Haddocks is going to be picking is certainly never a bad idea, but he's done very well on what he's done, whatever he's picked. Yesterday, I thought that the Leviathans, that is, came in with a game plan to try and really lock him down, set him behind, and it worked pretty well. They were able to really facilitate Yarkor, keep Haddocks uncomfortable, keep him behind, and allow the Leviathans to not have to worry about Haddocks as an initiating member, which is where he's been so valuable for this team during this season, as an initiator and as a fight starter. And if he starts falling behind, then that won't work quite as well for them. So I like the idea that the Leviathans came in with.
And that's got to be the pressure that we have to see out of the Valkyries too, right? If you want to control the Bolts, honestly, in my eyes, you got to start in one of two places. It's either Haddocks or Jake that you're trying to figure out. And so far, from what I can tell, it's impossible almost to control either of them. And so that is where a lot of this control, as has mentioned, is going to have to focus on them. And we've seen the Valkyries specifically have a playstyle more centric to Ducky as of late, so maybe starting to lean on something that could actually help them here.
Could be. I mean, this team, the Valkyries, has tried to lean that a little bit that way, but if I'm the Bolts, I'm just making sure that Haddocks is back on those comfort picks. Cerberus and that kind of stuff, I'm sure is in his wheelhouse. It was just the way the Leviathans wanted to play the map yesterday. I expect that the Bolts are going to be focusing their right side of the map pretty heavily here today.
Well, since we're talking about Haddocks, we'll figure out if they're going to be focusing on the right side of the map. We'll bring him in for an interview, although I do think that asking you straight up if they're going to focus on the solos is not going to work well, because you know the Valkyries are probably watching right now, so you won't reveal that to me. Instead, I'll just ask you, things didn't go the way you wanted it to yesterday, Haddocks. How are you feeling today?
It's never fun losing, but in the end, it is what it is, and you just got to be able to take a loss and learn from it.
Now, you guys are still trying to lock in at least top 2 with this set. Is there, any more pressure on you, especially, again, just with the way things are? You know how close these map standings are?
No, I never really let the pressure get to me, but, I expect to come in and win today, and it should be pretty good.
We had mentioned about it, and we've been talking about it, that yesterday there was a lot of focus on you. Today you're going up against Ducky, who has been kind of essential to the Valkyries' play style and wins as of late. Do you think that that's going to be a point of contention?
Maybe. I think that we can play through solo, but it's not really always our main game plan. We can play through anything. But yeah, it might be.
So you're not stressed at all. I can feel it. You sound relaxed, and I think we're going to see some of that come through in the play. Good luck in your games, man, and thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Just sounds calm and collected. I think exactly
As
what he
always.
said, which is you're never happy with a loss, but we're still going to come in and play.
Listen, this team did a lot of winning this phase. They
did a lot of winning in a row.
Yeah, a lot of winning. So you know that they might not be super used to losing, but they're going to be just fine. I'm not worried about the Bolts.
Well, they do have to go through the Valkyries here, and again, just to secure top 2. A lot of it, I think it's interesting that some of it's still in the air for them, because depending on how the Kings play when their set does finally happen, that affects their standings, because if the Kings end up losing for whatever reason, all of a sudden the Bolts get to take that first place spot. But right now, it is going to be Ducky, at least that's standing in Haddocks' way, as well as the rest of the Valkyries. And it has felt more essential as of late. You go back to the games, they've looked really, really solid. So far lately, it's been more on when Ducky looks perfect.
Ducky has been a focal point of this team when they're doing well, for sure. But I think that allowing him some of these initiator gods, they've been putting him on stuff like Gilgamesh, the Wukong of the past, really not as popular. Still played it fairly recently up against the Titans, but I feel like that was his first Wukong pick in a while. It's been a lot more focused on these gods that can get the fight started for the Valkyries, like Odin, like Gilgamesh, things of that nature. But don't forget that he had this set a couple of weeks ago up against the Warriors, where he soloed Nika multiple times in the same set, multiple times in the same game. If that level of Ducky comes back, man, who knows? That could be the win condition here for the Valkyries.
They've also been a very interesting team just in general when it comes to picks and bans, because as you had mentioned, Sun Wukong has been very, very pivotal for them, or something that they've gone to more often than not, at least when you look at the year. As of late, that's been narrowed down a lot more. Your Gilgameshes, things that are more setup-oriented for Johnny have definitely jumped in terms of pick priority for the Valkyries, along with things for Zeros. So they're playing, it feels like, more in that setup, kind of not necessarily just for Zeros, but also piloting or trying to Imolito into these fights.
Yeah, exactly. I think that the Valkyrie's still trying to find exactly what their identity is going to be moving into Phase 3. And that's the important thing, right, is that even though they're guaranteed AC, that they have been struggling overall, you're hoping that they can find their identity going into the end of this phase, figure out what's going to be working for them moving forward, and can try and use these types of real-life, full-speed games where the enemy team in particular is going to be really pushing for a victory and trying their best. This is invaluable practice for this team, and a team that still probably needs to work on some things in moments like this.
Well, this is I want to say maybe the more pivotal moment for them. The Bolts have to figure things out if they want to pick things up. The Valkyries, unfortunately, their fate as of right now is still sealed. We can see what they can offer here in week number 8 as we move to picks and bans for game number 1. The Bolts are going to be your first pick team. And I think this is interesting. One of the things I did, I was off, but still added things to my spreadsheet because, of course, bans against teams, specifically when it comes down to the Valkyries right now. The Raijin has been on the rise, but you've got your Gilgameshes, you've got your Lokis, and since the Bolts are kind of at the top, you expect Osiris, your Yamojas, things like that to be maybe more prioritized for them.
Yeah, I do expect, no surprise, see Yamoja banned. This is a pick the Valkyries prioritized heavily yesterday up against the Scarabs. They top picked it in both games, so they clearly have respect for that pick, and Jake has shown more than enough times to me that he cannot be allowed to have it. So no surprise to see that banned away. The Raijin, as you mentioned, has been taken away more often from Zeros. That feels like one of those picks that if they're going to try and put Johnny on more facilitator gods and let Zeros try and carry, Raijin is the type of god that will allow him to do that.
And notably, Valks, they have been enjoying going back towards the Artemis as of lately. They didn't get to do it a lot. The last set, they banned that first up against the Scarabs each time, but it has been one of their more first-picked gods as of late. They also notably went for the Emoja twice in a row yesterday, so it's not like we're going to get to see that. They have to change things up. The Bolts have been really, really enjoying the Osiris for Lasbra, and notably usually pairing it sometimes along with the Erlong Shin there in the solo lane for Haddocks, really getting a lot of flexibility out of these gods. And so I think the Bolts are more than happy to leave what is currently maybe the strongest warrior on the board.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if Valks don't ban it away here, the Osiris that is, because I feel like that is the pick that scares me the most if I'm going up against the Bolts, is Lasbra on that Osiris. We saw Panatom play it really well yesterday. Just everyone seems to be really working on that Osiris, so I would expect it to be banned, but it ends up being the Hell. In this pick, the teams that have shown the ability to carry with it have really been able to manipulate picks and bans. The Kings being the one that, of course, comes to the forefront of your mind in what they've been able to do. I think I would have likely banned Osiris instead of Hell, but if they feel like they can't, Odin's already off the board, they can't end up getting too much in order to counter it, they leave the Osiris open, and the Bolts are going to take it.
And good healing can always be so oppressive. So you're taking care of some of that, but what are you going to get for it on the other side? This is where that conversation really opens wide. We've seen a lot of Fafnirs as of late, although not necessarily from Raffer. That is just a standard top pick. You've got to talk about the Morgan Le Fay, since we have the Tiamat banned away, some of the mid laners now being prioritized. Maybe making things a little more awkward. I would argue maybe more for the Bolts now, because the Valkyries have been loving playing typically like a Neath Kronos combo if they can.
That's true. They played that yesterday and couldn't quite make it work, but still gave it a good shot. Feel like this should just be Artemis and whatever else you feel like you need. Could go
Ymir.
Sobek for Jake. Could go Ymir. Could go Morgan Le Fay. You've got options here if you're the Bolts, and I feel like they should start with Artemis, because I'm surprised the Valks didn't go for that pick. They've been so, as you mentioned, they've been picking it so much recently, but decided to go the Heimdall instead.
And this is actually a big pivot as well. The Terra we've seen on the rise lately, but to the point where yesterday she played very, very well and then has since been banned in a lot of these games. And we've seen her more or less, I think I want to give Genetics a lot of credit, because he was kind of heralding that.
Yep.
Same thing, actually, Raffer really playing a lot of the Terra before I would say it picked up for a lot of these other players. And you had highlighted the Artemis. She's going to get completely ignored by the Bolts.
Huh.
And they grabbed the Terra alongside the Izanami.
Just adding a little bit more wave pressure to that side of the map and really allowing the Bolts to guarantee lane pressure, where an Artemis doesn't really clear particularly well early on. And it is Loki for Johnny. I mean, this was permaban from him for so long, and then, of course, wasn't able to be played competitively for a bit. But then it came back, and it was immediately permaban from him yet again, and he finally gets to go towards this pick. But Osiris is one of those gods that I feel it corrals Loki so well. The stealth doesn't matter to Osiris. The tether will follow him through the stealth. And Loki's all about winning that all-in.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Osiris has like 16% physical damage mitigation plus his tether to reduce your damage. Like, you don't threaten him in the late game. So I'm a little surprised to see this be the pick here for Johnny.
Well, now I'm starting to get curious, because every time I see once I see a Wukong in the bans for the second phase against the Valks, I'm wondering if it's going to be the special. I guess there's no reason to ban Jingwei here, because there's a Heimdall already on the board. So they're only going to be able to get half of those. Cerberus, Morgan Le Fay banned out by the Valkyries. And now waiting for that final ban from the Bolts to finalize this. But the big thing in my eyes is this Loki pick, as you had highlighted, not just a big pick for Johnny in general, but it started out as the carry pick. I mean, he was the one doing pretty much all of the work, and since then, they've pivoted more towards the Gilgamesh, which notably was banned, but a lot more setup-oriented junglers for Johnny. This feels like maybe a return to old ways.
Yeah, I wonder if this is going to be a more supportive mid laner for Zero, something that isn't as focused on getting its own farm, but maybe there to create space. Zhang Kui comes to mind, but I don't know if anyone really wants to see that because we've seen so many teams try the Zhang Kui experiment and not do super well on it. Giannis is open. We've seen Zeros play that in the past. I'm looking at the Morrigan as well.
You willed it into existence.
Sorry, I guess. I don't know. I just had an inkling that it might be the Zhang. It creates space for the Loki. You know, that's the idea, is that he doesn't need to be hyper farmed. He can just build a little bit tankier, you know, build a Pythax piece, something along those lines, and then create space for the Loki to operate. But the bolts, Terra is one of those picks that I never want to see when I'm Zhang Kui, because number one, her root obliterates me, that I have to use beads or ult in order to get out of that root. And number two, I'm all about spreading little dot damage throughout a team fight, and all that does is proc Earth and Fury faster for the Terra, and that's never something I'm looking for.
Yeah, the Zhang Kui is 14 losses out of 16 games. He's got 2 wins under his belt this year. That it doesn't really instill confidence in me, but I will say a lot of people believe in him, and a lot of people have been returning to him. The Valkyries, notably that team. Hercules Thoth locked in. Thoth has not been played this year, aggro, so this is a first for them. But also, why Thoth? I mean, he's got good long-range damage. He's got decent damage. Why? I guess more so, why has he been vacant?
Because as soon as his dash is down, as soon as he's doing the little finger wag, you get like a lock-in targeter on you, and everyone just instantly goes on you, and you have
that guy.
0 self-peel. 0. Your only option is to kill them before they kill you. And this is where, if I'm Loki, and I see that little finger wagging, I know that I've actually got someone I can kill in that moment. So I'm very surprised to see Ven go for the Thoth. I think that it's good against characters that can't close your gap. Loki is just not one of those. He can't always close that gap. Assassinate's such a long-range ultimate. So I'm surprised to see that's the direction that he went, because I don't love it up against at least the Loki. The Zhang Kui, sure, he's never getting near you. It doesn't matter. But the Loki in particular can give him some problems.
I was going to say, it's putting a lot of trust in your front line to peel for you, but also I think showcasing, like, I think there's no lane matchup I've seen less than Thoth Zhang Kui. Like, when it's 2 mid laners going against each other, I am utterly unfamiliar with it because I don't know that I've ever seen it. The Xingqian gets locked in, more than likely going over to Ducky, though. We've seen him playing this. You kind of mentioned it during the highlights. Does that bring a more cohesive nature to the Valks draft?
I think that having some more solid front line, a beads burner, that does feel good here for the Valkyries, but Hercules in the solo lane just gives you such instant pressure, and you look at Osiris Herc, who defends the right side buffs for the Valkyries? It's not Loki. It's not Zhang Kui. It's not Xingqian. I mean, these are just gods that are too team fight oriented, not really farm oriented, and the bolts can kind of do both with what they've got in their draft. So I'm worried about the Valks right side of the map. I assume that the Osiris Hercules are going to be really able to get on a roll.
Well, the bolts are trying to secure their top 2. Let's see if the Valks can play upset here in game number 1.
Valkyries got a big one to turn around here against the bolts if they're going to stop the bolts from sealing the deal on a top 2 spot in the Phase 2 playoffs. My name is Dolson Mifflin's with me. Doug will be bringing us the views for game number 1 between the Olympus bolts and the Valhalla Valkyries. And an interesting call here in the mid lane. Mifflin Venenu picking up the Thoth.
Yeah, I got to agree with aggro. Man, I find myself agreeing with aggro so often recently, but Thoth is a god that is incredibly strong. I think that is worth noting. It is ridiculous to me that we have not seen him up until this point this year, but maybe not so strong into the likes of a Loki. I mean, as aggro so eloquently put, once you're in that finger wag stance post-dash, trying to toss out your root, oh well, you're kind of getting bodied by Assassinate. I think that it's decent from the bolts to have the front line that they do. Lazra, as already highlighted, is going to be good into this Loki pick. Haddocks is going to have very strong peel in the late game. Assassinate immediately driving strike off, but Ven definitely putting a target on his back.
It feels like neither mid laner is fully comfortable with all 5 on the enemy team that they're going against, because if we're going to talk more about what aggro said on the desk there and what Gormizer mentioned as well, Zeros has got a Terra to deal with over here for the Olympus Bowl. So both mid laners, maybe Miff, have a matchup on the other side of the aisle that they need to be a little bit concerned about. I'm interested to watch Jake's Terra, I think, in this game. You know, we've gotten so much data on the Ymirs, a little bit more on the Fafnir, Fenrir. We've gotten a decent look at Yamoja is pretty popular here for Jake. I think Terra's been not as played as those other couples, so I'm intrigued to see how this looks. Early on, it looks good. Raffer's taken half of his health and damage. Barracuda effectively trading. And so all the lane pressure feels like it's for the bolts here on left.
Jake does trade out his beads there so he can keep auto-attacking Raph to apply that kind of pseudo-frostbound effect that Terra has on her passive. I like that play, but Raph probably not going to die in that situation, so that is a huge utility tool loss for Jake early on. Survivability is still decent, pretty hard to lock down. A Terra has multiple dashes as well as some CC immunity or partial CC immunities built into the kit, so I'm not overly concerned with Jake's ability to survive going forward. Maybe more important is the horrific emblem used by iRapper. That is every single bit of their kill pressure in lane.
Yeah, Awesome Jake has been using this one level lead to a pretty decent level here on the left side of the map. There is a rotation from Johnny over to the right. He's gotten Haddocks low here, but Ducky is low as well because Lasbra in on the counter gank, but Laz has got no mana. Haddocks doesn't either. Oh, it's the knock up and the driving strike back, and one last auto is there, and Lasbra's got it nearly. Johnny will clean up the kill onto Laz, but no, the Olympus Bolts get away with first blood. There's a stun onto Emilito on left as well, and nearly enough damage is followed up on by Barracuda. Bad to worse. Both flanks on the map lose a kill.
Here's the thing about Izanami. You can't stand in your minions to block her auto attack. She's going to hit you either way. Johnny attempting a blue buff invade here. Haddocks forced to put up the defense and looks like was not successful in doing so. Look, man, the Olympus Bolts came here to play. Clearly the favorites in this set, and already off to a roaring start. Nearly 1,000, maybe closer to 2,000 gold in the lead at this point. 1,500, split the difference.
Split the difference.
Never do the math on a cast.
You weren't wrong.
Yeah, you know.
1 to 2,000.
Yeah.
Literally right in the middle. That counts something there for you, Miff. Now Zeros gets some pressure from Lasbra. Will the stun connect on the other end? No, it will not. Zeros had beads anyway, but putting pressure onto this Zhonghui has now got a one-level advantage here for Venenu. If there's a little poke that rolls through a final judgment, might be able to clean this up, but now healthy enough is Zeros. And you know, we've seen plenty of Giannis Myth, and the Giannis snipes and things like that have been talked about. Plenty. You know, Thoth has got one of those as well. So set up around that is going to be key here. Emilito into the Bifrost, and he will get out just fine.
Barracuda did have access to the Dark Portal there, but stands too close to the Gallarhorn from Emilito, which allows him to ride the Bifrost on out of there. But Izanami holds on to her ultimate, has great 1v1 potential, especially with what I can only assume is going to be the Ichabel build for Barracuda. But Johnny maybe trying to put a stop to it.
Barra dashes out, and there's a stop to the gank. Now Zeros gets run down on. A little bit of damage flowing through, but not enough to give Venenu the confidence to pull the trigger on the final judgment. Yet Zeros uses his ultimate, and it's these little bits of pressure that the Olympus Bolts love to apply, that build up, that put the enemy team at a disadvantage, and then the Olympus Bolts are able to capitalize. So, not fantastic early on just yet. Jake alone under the tier 1 tower. Will he pay for his crimes? Yes, he will. Emilito picks it up. A little overzealous there from Awesome Jake.
Did you see the damage output? Did you see it?
That was a lot.
Yeah, that's that Terra hidden tech where you can use your dash through the 2 as it applies the stun, generally just used for buffs or maybe securing objectives, because it's so it's crazy difficult to do it up against a god, but somehow Jake lands it, and I'm sure Emil's thinking to himself, what happened to me?
Yeah, right. I got a kill, but I'm scared now the next time Jake is able to make it back into lane. Continued pressure on the right side of the map by Johnny, but the Loki ultimate has to get expended. Barracuda invades the purple buff and does so successfully up against 2 members of the Valhalla Valkyries. So that's kind of like a hangover from the Awesome Jake dive that happened there. Emilito's been really low, Raffer about half HP, and that's given Barracuda the freedom to play aggressive despite being in a 2v1. So purple buff invade had gone right for the Olympus Bolts, who now find themselves still some more gold lead ahead.
And for now, the Olympus Bolts can likely just wait it out. Maybe once these Gold Furies start to spawn up, it seems like they want those spawning up very soon, going for the Greater Scorpion on the Gold Furies side. That's going to be where they can start to force these engagements. And you brought it up a little bit earlier, how both mid laners have to play semi-cautiously on the map. The difference between the Zhonghui versus Terra matchup and the Thoth versus Loki matchup is that Terra's not killing Zhonghui.
Right.
She's kind of invalidating the team fight a little bit. Earth and Fury, a great heal, but still certainly going to apply some damage. Will Zeros. Meanwhile, Ven, he's got to play cautiously, and so far, Johnny has shown a propensity to play very aggressive inside of this match. So I think that Ven is likely going to be holding on to his dash for a while, or building some CDR very early on, Chronos Pendant, inside of that first slot, just to make sure that he's always got some sort of survivability available.
And lots of blue buff pressure from Johnny, who goes Transcendence. First item overall here on this Loki. Purple buff Invade, gone not correctly for the Valhalla Valkyries. Awesome Jake will grab that one. Transcendence on Loki here, Miff. Is that the right avenue for Johnny?
You know, I like that for the Loki build. You're looking for one-shot potential. It's probably going to be either a Hydra's or maybe a Jotun's or even a Brawler's Beat Stick inside of the next slot. Johnny's saying, I want a little bit of CDR, but I really want power. Because when he goes in, it's something Aggro brought up briefly on the desk, is Loki's all about that all-in engage. You go in, you trade your life, you're feeling pretty good about it, as long as you're finding a priority target. It is going to slow down Johnny's early game slightly, but already at a deficit, I think it's fine that he's trying to find his power elsewhere.
Needs some time to build it up. Still hovering around this blue buff. Haddocks nearly gets all the damage. Spends his ultimate to grab it. Knows that Johnny is somewhere close by. And provided that Haddocks isn't brawling out any time in the next couple of minutes, probably feels like that is worthwhile. Asbro and Venenu poke their head around the corner here as Ducky is rotated out of the solo lane. So 3 versus 2 still likely, despite a deficit, would favor the Valhalla Valkyries here, especially if it's Venenu who gets jumped on. But not to be, and Venenu will sit back just fine and farm things up. Barracuda and Awesome Jake, they're going tower diving here. Emilito takes a whole lot of damage, but not enough until Barracuda dashes on through. It's the second kill of the game for the Izanami, and Awesome Jake will live on.
It's just Raffer on the rotation end, and he's going to show up in time to watch everybody make their way back to base. Unfortunate
They're here,
for
right?
ML, man. I mean, just getting dove inside his tower repeatedly. This time, though, Awesome Jake does bring back up Barracuda. Credit for the kill, and 2-0. Is this Izanami just 8 minutes into the game? That is a sizable lead in just experience already. An entire level. Charged bow picked up as well, so we're going into that oboe tree. He's got the AoE damage online from that kind of weaker passive of the tier 2 item, which means that with Gold Fury up, I think the Bolts are in a position now where they could probably just force a fight there.
You know, I don't want to overanalyze anything because Barracuda's obviously off to a great start. He's got 2 kills and a 2-level lead. Were you surprised at all that it was the Iza over the Artemis pick? I mean, Artemis was left open, but maybe with the way things have been going, trades like this, Barracuda's just fine with the pick that he's got. He'll dash forward, Horrific Emblem drop. Johnny stealth around the backside, but Barracuda will receive a little bit of healing here, and Lasbra in to save the day. Lord of the Afterlife catches on to 2, and the first falls, and it's Raffer that goes down. Johnny does have his ultimate here, but can he use it to escape? A lot of damage missing, but the important damage sticks, and it's a double for the Osiris.
Gotta wonder what Johnny's holding that ult for, man. I mean, you're stealthing around to be sure, but maybe a teleport away from the guys who are legitimately murdering you would have been helpful in that situation. Well, he respawns in 10 seconds. It's still going to be up. Maybe gets involved again, but I think that there's definitely a world there where he just lives.
Yeah, could have happened. Emilito could steal this way, but I think low likelihood
Good Lord.
on everything that we've lifted there. Emilito, 1 and 3, got the kill on Awesome Jake on the tower dive, but Gold Fury over to the Olympus Bolts. This is the type of bounce back that you want from a Bolts team that loses a very difficult set against the Atlantis Leviathans yesterday. Will be a kill here onto Venenu, and it's Zeros that picks it up, so not entirely clean are the Olympus Bolts around that Gold Fury. And now the Jean-Qui's got a 1-level lead, 1 kill in the back pocket. But every other facet of the game, except for 1 kill here, 1 kill there, has been good for the Bolts.
You see the gold lead, Dave? You see it at the top of the screen right now?
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, that's 4,000 gold 10 minutes into this game.
Yeah.
That is a commanding lead as of right now.
I'm not sure if Ven's worried about dropping a kill there.
Guys, oh man, I ruined it. Well, Ven is a level down, which is relevant inside of this match, but yeah, I'm sure he's got plenty of faith in the rest of his boys to be able to make up for that in the near future as Haddocks takes a 2v1 at the enemy blue buff.
Yeah, what a
successful in the steal, but creates so much space that Pyromancer being pulled out.
Yeah, this one will be easy for the Olympus Bolts unless Ducky somehow teleports across the Fire Giant pit, steals it away, which he will not be able to do so. What a difference we've seen over here on the right side, where Haddocks has just gotten so much pressure from Johnny and Ducky. Felt like he had to watch his blue buff get invaded a couple of times. Now feeling confident enough on this Hercules at level 11. Item and a half completed with the Fighter's Mask to walk into the enemy blue buff and see if we can find ourselves an invade. So it seems like the Olympus Bolts executing on their game plan, but this is what we were worried about. Venenu getting jumped on, but Johnny's used his ultimate, and that means easy damage from Venenu on the back end. Final Judgment charge, but it will not be let fly. And Awesome Jake will round the backside, get the kill onto Loki.
Zero's now forced to retreat to his own tower. Does use the beads, but maybe not enough.
Wow.
Lasbra, credit for this one.
God, Lasbra's doing just so much damage. It's going to be
Stop!
another double for the Osiris. Rapper leaps away. Lasbra can close this gap, though. One more slow. Venenu wants it, but Venenu will not get it. Lasbra is swinging right now. He is 6,000 damage on top of the damage charts. 402 on this Osiris. I guess Icavale's Stone Cutting Sword might just set you up for this type of early game.
I'm not sure that many people on the map, nobody on the map on either team is going to 1v1 Lasbra. I don't care if Haddocks switches sides and tries to take that 1v1. Lasbra wins those. Stone Cutting plus Icavale means that really he's shredding and he's dealing just too much damage. I mean, he's another ADC at this point. He could just go to Gold Fury. Legitimately, he might be able to solo it out if he gets a little bit of life stealing under his belt. But you're right, Dave. I mean, this Osiris has had zero threat onto him because there are lightning rods for aggression on his team every single time he rotates into a fight. It's the Valhalla Valkyries either trying to dive on a Barracuda or Ven. Well, they've ignored Lasbra, and that's probably a mistake you don't want to make when there's an Osiris 3 levels up on the Loki.
This Osiris has become I like the word you used there, Myth, a lightning rod. A lightning rod pick here for this Olympus Bolts team. It feels like when Laz is on this pick, the rest of the Bolts play a little bit more comfortably. The Erlang Shen then yesterday was a definite tonal shift from the games that he's on the Osiris. So those are the type of trends that I look for moving forward. This is the last set of the phase, remember, for the Olympus Bolts before we see them in the Phase 2 playoffs. Unfortunately, the Valkyries not able to qualify for it. So it's these matches. You call it a heat check. You know, if the Bolts win this one, which they're well on their way to winning game number 1, they'll have a first-round bye, so they'll have to match up against either one of the other 2 top 4 teams or the Oni Warriors or the Titans, depending on how those first couple of rounds go. So the Olympus Bolts is going to be our last look before they go up against one of the big swingers here in the SPL as far as the first couple of matchups in the Phase 2 playoff goes. And if this is our last indication of how this Bolts team is going to look, maybe some revived confidence from yesterday.
Yeah, except for Ven, dude. This guy's actually feeding right now.
He's got the same amount of deaths as Jake.
Yeah, but Jake's got more kills.
That's true.
And
more assists.
And more assists. Yeah.
Unreal.
Yeah. Come on, Ven.
Your confidence is shooketh in Ven, huh?
Yeah. Look, man, I'm not saying he's the problem, but right now he is.
Yeah, and I'm sure his teammates would absolutely agree if we could tune into their comms. No, I think the mindset was pretty clear here. Barracuda laughing, you know, as awesome Jake deals ridiculous damage but ends up dying under the Tier 1 tower earlier on. Venenu gets run down here by Johnny, as we've seen a couple of times before, but once that gap closes down, if Venenu still has the dash away, Ven can just turn around, deal some damage back. Fight does break out here, and Venenu plenty safe to let damage fly from the mid lane. Double stun from Lasbra, Earth and Fury down from awesome Jake. Final Judgment goes, and it sets up for another kill for Lasbra, who is on a rampage here. Aegis will keep Ven on the map a little bit longer. Teleport in, Johnny dies, 1-for-1 trade. And finally, Ven is able to get a kill on board. Another double kill for Lasbra. The Olympus Bolts are running away with game 1.
So the Valkyries were taking that fight on that right mid camp, and Johnny was clearing out the back camps. He stole back camps from the Olympus Bolts, rotates back in, and strips away the life from Ven. And
what's the earliest FG you've ever seen?
This is in contention for it. 15
We're not even
minutes?
15 minutes in. Will this get taken down before 15 minutes? The Olympus Bolts got 10 seconds to finish this one off. The delay from Haddocks might make things interesting. 5 seconds away, and the Olympus Bolts get it sub 15 minutes on the FG. Raffer, unfortunately, not able to get anything done here. The old Salt Global emotes will seal his fate here at some point. He'll waste a little bit of time. Look, he's burnt 15 seconds off this FG buff already.
Zooming. He is zooming across the map. He's still alive, Dave. We might get a whole 20 seconds. He might just live. The Bolts say, you know what, not worth my time, all right? There's a Fury elsewhere on the map, and it seems like a better allocation of time. Raffer, he's just not worth as much gold. Not globally, not for any one member.
Awesome Jake is nearly the same level, or ahead, of every single person on the Valhalla Valkyries at level 13. Yeah, this Terra is level 13. Everyone else is either 13 or 14, so very close there. As any indicator of the way that this game is going. So, it's a very early FG. We're sub 15 minutes on that. The Olympus Bolts, you have to imagine, are going to take this time to open up those Phoenixes, and then maybe one more FG gets this Titan down. But you always have to sow some intrigue in here, Myth.
Okay.
You know, maybe
you want me to do it, or are you going to do it?
Maybe if you get a kill onto Ven, you know, you're fighting a 4v5. Yeah, but then you got a 6-0 into Osiris to deal with.
Well, they got him.
They got a kill onto Ven. It's a 4v5.
Okay, 4v5 here, but the bolts aren't grouping.
Here goes Lazarus. I'm just going to run down Emilito, I guess. The Bifrost and the beads get used. Not worried about zeros at all is Lazarus. And Emilito loses all of his HP. I have every bit of confidence that the Olympus Bolts still want to fight this one. Why not when Haddocks is going to do that? Driving strike into Emilito. And now Lazbro waiting. He'll blink on forward. Knock up from Haddocks. Every bit of CC is connecting. And that is a dead Zhang Kui at the hands of an unstoppable Lazbro. So 1 Ven in exchange for a zeros and Emilito. I think the Bolts will take it.
Bro, Ven's 1 and 3, man. Is it even worth killing this guy? He's clearly not the reason the Bolts are winning. Ducky trying his best to slow down this Tier 2 tower, but doesn't really get that accomplished. Tier 2 does fall.
It does end up falling, and that is more gold, unfortunately, to the Olympus Bolts. 10,000 gold plus is what we're looking at here. 17 minutes into the game. Oni minion waves are working their way in now. So as if things were difficult enough, you've got a full Oni wave on left, or that actually just now got taken down, but it's going to be a Tier 2 falling in right as well. Barracuda, I think, could 1v1 just about anyone on the map. Nearly hits that ultimate, which would have made things difficult for Johnny. Frenzy gets used by Awesome Jake here. So the last Tier 2 tower on the map will go down 17.5 minutes in. And normally in moments like this, Myth, you're at least saying, all right, well, look, you're so far behind, but you know, at least the Bolts are all level 20, or they're all full build, and we're closing that gap, right?
No.
Yeah, no, we're nowhere close. This is going to get a whole lot worse, I think, before it gets better.
Okay, well, at the end of the day, they did outplay your, what was it, the intrigue that you were sowing. You said that if they kill Ven, the Valhalla Valkyries, that they would be in a 5 versus 4 situation. Well, that's not the case. The Bolts split the entire map. 1 or 2 members going to the right lane, 1 guy's pushing mid, 2 people in left, and at no point were the Valhalla Valkyries in a position to defend any of those towers. There was a kill on the Ven, and that kind of spelled the end of it after the re-engage from both Lazbra and Haddocks, where you got that pretty sick clothesline onto Johnny inside of that right side jungle. And now the Olympus Bolts, with only 30 seconds left on this Fire Giant, are starting to group up pretty heavily on this left side of the map.
Go for it.
Yeah, I think they're going to siege regardless of this Fire Giant.
Yeah, you think even without it they go?
That's the only reason they're there, right?
I mean, I guess what? You normally equate FG to 10,000 gold.
I do.
They're 14,000 up, so even when the FG falls off, they're effectively a Fire Giant. They're a Fire Giant ahead anyway. They're 2 FGs ahead at the moment. We're not even 20 minutes into the game. So if the Olympus Bolts are able to make good on this fight, this is the first big 5v5 we've seen. And this one could end the game if the Olympus Bolts win it quick enough. There are no towers left on the map, so the Titan is as weak as it's going to get for the rest of this game for the Valhalla Valkyries. Johnny walks forward, spreads out a little damage on the back line. Haddocks happily taking this Phoenix damage that is not doing all that much to him. Awesome Jake will spread out some healing to the rest of his team. I'm just waiting for the jump to come in, and it's Ducky who starts it off, but it's a root on the backside, but immediately peeled out as Barracuda, who did not have to use his beads. Final Judgment will not connect onto Rapper, but now the onslaught arrives, and it's Lazbra who dives into the back line, finds his 8th kill of the game. Johnny might do what he's done all game and get a kill onto Venenu, but Lazbra is absolutely swinging. He's already got 2, could be a 3rd around the corner. Haddocks makes it 1, Lazbra makes it 3, and the Olympus Bolts might be able to end this one just over 20 minutes.
Here's the thing, man. You got all your eyes on Ven and Barracuda, and Lazbra is going to go on the tear. Triple kill for the Osiris.
My man is 10-0-3. Might make it 11-0-3 if he wants to find his way into the fountain. It really felt like, Myth, the seeds were sowed on this one pretty early into the game. Damage, you know, we're still 20 minutes in, so Titan's going to take a minute to go down, but Venenu healthy enough that he's going to deal the last bit of damage to this one. Lazbra might be able to even add another kill, but no, Ducky will at least live on. Look.
I'm looking.
The seeds of the end of this game were sowed.
They sow them?
Pretty early on, weren't they? I mean, Lazbra, he walked in, helped with an early kill. The duo lane for the Valkyries fell behind super early. By the time Labs had like 3 kills and 6,000 damage like 5 minutes into the game.
That's pretty good.
You know, the Bolt's a good enough team that they're going to close that out.
Look, but there is one silver lining for all you Valkyries fans at home. The Ven kind of looked butts. So keep abusing Ben.
Have you seen, and I don't want to pile on Ven because, look.
Well, you should.
That was the nature of that game where he just got dove on. Have you seen the meme where it's like, the podium, first place, second place, third place, and first and second place are just like sitting there nice and happy with their medals, and then third place is like pouring beer on himself, and he's like cheering just because he got the medal. Have you seen that one?
I have seen that meme.
Yeah, that's Ven in this one. He's the third place guy. He's just happy to have got the medal with his team.
Another win!
The Olympus Bolts back on track here with a Game 1 win over the Valhalla Valkyries. Let's see if they can stamp their top 2 spot to the Phase 2 playoffs with a win in Game 2. Up next, stick around.
So here's the pitch, okay? We've all seen Myth Swifts. It's that outtake show, and it was running it in. I saw chat spamming when I told Jordan to focus. So we're gonna run with that. Strike while the iron is hot. Jordan sitting at his desk at the video team section. I don't know what they do. I don't care what they do. But for the premise of this video, cannot be focused. Watching anime butts on one screen. I don't care what he's doing. Just can't be working. All right. And then he hears Myth Swifts. Big TV right behind him. Myth Swifts playing. Here's the line. Says Jordan, focus. Okay. And then his eyes go wide. He turns around. Turns off the TV. He's trying to get rid of me. He knows he's not focused, but he knows he needs to be. But goes back to his desk, goes back to doing whatever he's doing. But he has to focus. So I'm at his window. Boom, slam on the window. I'm like the Babadook, okay? He doesn't know where I'm coming from. I slam the window, piece of paper, says focus. He does a little bit. He focuses a little bit. He doesn't turn off the anime butts. No. He flips his hat around, Ash Ketchum style. I don't know. And then he goes back to doing anything he wants, but not focusing. That's not enough for me. That's not enough for hi-rez. It's not enough for what we stand for. So I appear behind the wall behind him, okay? Boom, Mifflin, up there. I tell him to tighten up. He needs to focus. He does a little bit more. He focuses a little bit, but not enough, okay? And then it's not enough for me. It's not enough for me, okay? We have to go even further beyond that, all right? He does eventually close the screen, but that's not enough. I'm still appearing. I'm appearing everywhere. I'm in the bathroom. I'm in his cereal. I'm in his snacks. I'm telling him to focus, and eventually he switches desks. I'm under his desk, okay? I'm telling him to focus there, and that's where it happens. He sits in a maxonomic chair, his eyes dilate, and he finally finds his focus.
Okay. Approved.
I sold it? I sold it! Yes! I'm gonna sell so many chairs.
Jordan, what the was that? We just lived a fever dream. I have no idea what just happened, and we approved it.
What kind of anime butts we talking? What kind of anime butts we talking?
You broke me.
If you think that one is wild, you should see what else Myth has written down in that notebook. It has done nothing but expand since that got filmed.
I don't know what to say about that notebook. I really don't. There are things in there that almost certainly people will see. And then
Probably.
There are things in there that no one will see.
Yep.
And we should keep it that way. Let's put it that way.
All of them are a coin toss. Some of them are really, really fun, though, and so
They
people will see those. And, of course, that is to bring us to the thank you to Maxnomic for providing us very comfortable chairs to all this. Again, needforseat.com. Use code SMITEMAX on checkout, and you're going to be good to go for that one. I actually just recently had mine stolen by my wife. She decided to get rid of her chair and took the Maxnomic chair and pushed me back to my old office chair. And so,
is she allowed to do that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That's yeah.
Yeah. Yes. The answer to that is yes. That was
Like,
a
look,
stupid
we're
question.
dating, man.
No, that's
Yeah?
not if we're dating.
This
yeah.
is yeah.
No, at this point, that's just how it goes.
I'm Gore, that's Aggro. And hey, the Bolts are now one step closer to getting themselves a guaranteed top 2 spot. They block in the Thoth. You were a little iffy about it, Vin. I think they had even described it on the cast as like that third place. Like, he's just happy to be there. He's perfectly fine. Instead, it is the rest of the team, I think, that really comes to the light, and under the spotlight is the Osiris.
I mean, Lasbra just completely ran through this whole game. And it's exactly as I expected. They top pick it for him. It's not banned. And he does what he's done on this pick the last few times he's gotten it, and just completely decimates the entire game with it. This Loki was just tracked constantly because of the tethers and all the damage. It was really easy to follow him. Zhang Kui, he's doing his ult, and you get Terra ulted and then Osiris tethered, and you're doing no damage. Like, you just can't deal any damage at that point. The Zhang Kui pick continues to struggle and not look particularly good in a matchup like this. Don't give Lasbra Osiris. That's how I'm going to.
It's a good lesson. Like, in and of itself, it is. There's a good reason that it's a top ban. Maybe a number one reason why it is a top ban specifically versus the Bolts as of late. Definitely able to run through them towards the very end of it. They also had a really, really quick Fire Giant there for the Bolts, which helped facilitate the end of that game. He goes 10-0-3, Aggro. As it turns out, that's a really good slash line. I don't know the exact math off the top of my head. It was literally just on the screen. I think it's 11.5 for the KDA. And he just kind of pilots this game for him. Right behind him in terms of damage is Haddocks and Vin. and Bera. They're all just 1,000 damage apart from each other. And so I expect them to do something more or less similar. If they can get most of these same picks, maybe they'll play around a little bit knowing they have the 1-game lead. Bera seems incredibly relaxed, so I don't know that they're too worried going into game 2.
Yeah, instead of like breaking down the player mindset or like some changes, can we just do what Bera's doing?
He's just giggling.
Because this is how truthfully, this is how Bera probably should feel going into the next game. And this is how the entirety of the Bolt should feel, because they've been playing really good Smite. Does he know he's on? How does he know? He's giving us a little wave. How does he know that he's on? I don't know. That's weird. That freaks me out a little bit.
He's in your head, Aggro.
He's in my head.
This is what you get for doing backliners.
I guess so.
By the way, every Sunday, 8 p.m.,
8
right?
8 p.m., that's the spot for it, yep.
There you go.
Sunday at 8. That's where you can. Does he have a pillow behind him on the chair? What?
Max relaxation from Bera. Look, you either catch him snacking or napping. He can only do one of the two.
Well, I'll tell you, if he had a Maxonomic chair, you wouldn't have to worry about a pillow because he'd be comfortable without it.
Exactly. And again, they actually lean back really, really far.
They
Like
do. I wish
to
I
the
had
point
one right
where
now.
sometimes you start to feel like you're going to tip over,
Yep.
but it never tips over.
Nope.
Unless you imbalance properly. I've learned that the hard way. See, Haddocks has one. He's not even using it.
And he doesn't need a pillow. There you go. Look.
And you know why, Aggro? It's because when it comes with the chair, you can see it behind him. It says Maxonomic.
It's right there. It's right on the neck, right where you need it.
You also get the lumbar support.
Yeah, you got it all. Look, I mean, we could all call a spade a spade. The Bolts are one of the best teams in the league. The Valkyries have not looked good all phase. They have not really put together a cohesive set all phase. They got their win, but it was up against the Scarabs with extenuating circumstances. This is terrifying. Yeah, what is... All right, okay, sorry. I lost my train of thought there. What happened? Where am I?
Oh,
I'm at the studio. Okay, yeah.
Extenuating circumstances.
Right, that's where the Valkyries won their set. The Valks need to just understand. You know, we all understand the position they're in, and I feel for them. But at the same time, I think it's fair to expect a little bit more, and we just haven't gotten that.
Well, we'll get to see what they have in phase number 3. Realistically,
we've
we're going to
circle.
see what the Bolts have here in game number 2. Finally, we got some bread from. I don't know why.
He
so
could
fun.
put things on the bread. Like
you know,
he's allowed.
Peanut butter,
right?
Jelly,
yeah,
ham,
butter,
cheese.
Yeah.
Quite literally anything. It could be toast instead of just bread.
No, he just eats plain bread.
You know, it's so kind of like dinner rolls at the very beginning. You know, like you sit down, like I appreciate a really good dinner roll. I went to a place like 2 weeks ago, had cornbread and like yeast rolls. It made me very happy.
Yeah, cornbread's great.
Just, I think, appeals to me growing up in the South. I don't know. Either way, Valks are your first pick this time around. They ban out the Odin. Bolts respond with the Yamoja. Last time around, the Valks, when they played the Scarabs, locked in Yamoja first pick each time they got the chance, so it makes sense to try and strip that away. Bolts banned Raijin, Odin, Gilgamesh last time. With Odin being banned by the Valkyries, that means they could still theoretically get all of the bans that they wanted away from the Valkyries.
Yeah, the Cerberus ban is an interesting one from the Valks. They banned this bottom 2 game 1, if memory serves. But this in the first pick position, things change. You know, you want to open things up for yourself. Some of these priority picks. Maybe you can get something like a Raijin on your team or a Tiamat. You've got every mage open right now. If I'm the Valks, I'm not banning any of them.
Well, they actually go out of their way. I'm surprised to see this one. The Bolts banning the Osiris, as opposed to trying to leave maybe a couple of things open. I honestly think leaving things like the Raijin open, you know that's where the Valkyries have been going for their mid lane pick, and then trying to scoop up the Osiris on the other side of it. The Valkyries are not going to be able to play around with that, and they're not going to let the Bolts play around too much either. They ban the Tiamat, and now the Bolts go in for the final ban here. A lot of this has been Loki, Gilgamesh notably still available, Raijin still available.
Yeah.
So something that the Valkyries like is still going to be open.
Yeah, I think Raijin is where I'd go, and that is what they decided to ban. I think that just making sure that Zeros is off this pick. I mean, if Tiamat Raijin are banned and the next thing he goes to is Zhong Kui, then why would you leave Raijin open, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the difference in power level there is stark. So you end up giving him something else instead of one of those power picks. Valks can go with the Gilgamesh in this spot. You imagine the Lasper's going to take it if they don't, but they could give Johnny back towards that more carry style or the more setup style, and it is the hell this time around for the Valkyries.
I know last time they banned this specifically against the Valkyries. We had been talking about it like, man, you let the Osiris through, though. Obviously, we saw how that went. He was 10-0-3. does the Hell, I mean, something that is manageable but still kind of difficult to deal with in certain circumstances, does it bring enough to the Valkyries, especially compared to what they had in game number 1?
Yeah, I think that the thing that the Hell brings is that it shortens the margin for error for the Bolts. The Bolts don't have as much opportunity to make mistakes and then not get punished for it. The Hell will, if there's one team fight where you get everyone low, but you kind of chase too deep, you end up losing the team fight against other players, other gods, they'll have to reset anyway, so it doesn't matter. But against Hell, maybe the Valks can stick around, do a Fire Giant, get some towers, things of that nature. So I like this idea. Force the Bolts to play as clean as possible.
Well, if you were worried about the duo lane last time, because it was Terra Izanami, you're worried about it again, because it's Terra Izanami. The Bolts lock it right back. The Terra was very, very oppressive. You had highlighted specifically towards the Zhang Kui, really stifled that damage, but it's going to be pretty helpful, I can imagine, throughout some of these other god picks, specifically when we look at what Zeros' god pool has been, because it hasn't been as wide. I mean, at this point, with Raijin gone, the Tiamat taken away, Zhang Kui maybe not necessarily matching up into the Terra, you start to go to Neath, and I start thinking of maybe the Morgan Le Fay as well, who's still available, but not as many open options that you would hope for the Valkyries.
Yeah, I think that you're looking at the Valks here. I mean, Artemis, but they bypassed it last time. You could go that direction. I still like going Gilgamesh potentially here for Johnny, trying to get some team fight presence. You need some AoE, and you need some range whenever you've got a Hell, because she doesn't really have the best range damage, of course, especially considering the mage class. So I would like to get something that actually puts some threat on you from a distance, and even something like a Gilgamesh ultimate that you can place from a distance doesn't feel too bad in that sense. But Jingwei, very typical for Emilito, goes to that pick pretty often. Athena is one that we do not see nearly as often, and I'd assume this is going to Raffer, but Johnny could take it into the jungle. It's certainly possible. And Ducky, I believe, has played Athena solo a couple times in his career. So a nice little flex pick here for the Valks.
Well, now things are getting a little, I don't even know if the term wonky can describe it. Cabrakan locked in for the Bolts. And this is one of those weird scenarios where, again, more than likely, at least with Terra in there, probably not support. Although we have in the past seen Terra solo, so something that could end up swapping there, but we've also seen Cabrakan go into the jungle, very similar to the Athena. He's got 3 theoretical roles that he's going to be able to bring out, and Lasbra doesn't necessarily have a pick just yet, so it leaves a nice wide-open conversation for the Bolts.
I like Cabrakan Athena's a kind of weird matchup, because there are certain things about the matchup that I love from Cabrakan's standpoint, namely that Athena has to charge her dash, I can wall her in very easily. That's a really good initiation target. But Athena also gets block stacks, can have up to 3 with her 1, and then all of a sudden you're trying to swing and get that stun, and you can't because you're getting block stacked. So that feels a little bit awkward. Looks like it is going to be Cabrakan solo and Serket jungle, so it won't be as big of a deal if Lasbra is trying to look towards exactly where this Athena is going to be, but maybe this Athena is going solo and this Cabrakan is going to match up against it pretty frequently.
Well, keeping us on our toes, still waiting for the mid lane pick for the Bolts. They get the Serket. Serket traded Lasbra incredibly well for a very, very long amount of time, to the point where it escalated into a must ban in the top 3 versus the Bolts because they were able to pick it up, and that setup ended up being so important and versatile to them. Now we get the Merlin lock in for the Valkyries, which makes me start to shift things, I think, into their positions. Athena, as you had mentioned, probably for Raph or Hell, more than likely going to Ducky. Merlin going into the mid lane, and now Ratatoskr, another actually very notable and very well-performing pick for Johnny that we got to see a lot last year. I think he might have even gotten a pentakill on this Ratatoskr at some point.
Very comfy on this god, and this is the type of god that I'm surprised we don't see more of from Johnny. It can initiate, it can be that setup god, but in the early game it gives you an opportunity to carry, and that's exactly what I think the Valks need. I'm a little worried about how their overall draft is going to team fight. I think they might be a little bit too easy to dive. I think they have very few peel options on their side, but if they can get off to a good start, they've got everything else you need. They have good initiation CC, not great peeling CC, but initiation CC is good. They can start fights really well. They've got good AoE. They've got the sustain. They've got pretty good survivability for the Jingwei and the Rat and the Merlin. Overall, I think the Valks have come together with a fairly good draft, but I look at all the CC on the other side from the Bolts, and I don't know who is interrupting this Kabrakan as he's going in. You know, who is really going to stop this and punish this Cirquette and her mobility? I think it's going to be difficult with what the Valks have.
Yeah, just as a front line, the Bolts are really, really well off. They lock in the Giannis, notably banned a lot by the Leviathans yesterday. Kind of caught me off guard to see it in their top 3 bans versus the Bolts each and every time because, admittedly, Vin isn't the first person I think of when I think of Giannis. Vin has a lot of really, really good mid laners. But the Giannis has caught me by surprise. Do you think this is going to showcase why the Leviathans were trying to ban it out?
I think so. Ven has looked very good on Giannis, but in limited opportunities on it. You know, for that week or so, that maybe 2 to 3 weeks where Giannis was like the premier mid laner, Ven was playing it and playing it very well. But outside of that, you know, I don't think of him as that traditional Giannis specialist. I do want to see him on some of his more initiation style picks, but still a good pick for him.
It's going to look good, I think, no matter what, especially with everything he's got around him, right? There's nothing but setup, and setup from anybody that's going to be crossing in his lane. So even if you miss a portal, if you could probably miss an unstable vortex or two and still get a lot of decent damage down. I mean, you had highlighted it. The Valkyries are in this good position, at least in terms of a draft, to show up. Are they just looking to put up a better fight this time, or are they trying to play upset? Do they have a better chance to take on the Bolts?
They've got a better chance with this draft, I would say, but I mean, the reality is that if they do anything positively, they're going to look better than they did in Game 1. Game 1 was an absolute stomp, so I'm hoping that they can do a little bit better than that.
I think I might need burn cream from that. Like, I felt the heat over there. As you just saying it as it is, I acknowledge that, but it definitely a hard hitter from aggro. We'll see if the Valks can do it here. The Bolts trying to secure top 2 in Game 2.
Yeah, got to be a big turnaround here from the Valhalla Valkyries if they're going to make things interesting for the Olympus Bolts. Still Dolson, Mifflin, and Doug. For game number 2 here, a bit of a pivot from the Valhalla Valkyries. Mifflin, they put Ducky on this hill out of the solo lane. A little global pressure and semi-global pressure with Johnny and Rafa, respectively.
So we drafted a much safer duo lane, Emilito now on the Jingwei, so if we're seeing those 6-minute 2-man tower dives, he likely survives those this time around. And then you've got a couple of late game hyper carries inside of Merlin and Hell. My concern for having a draft around some late game hyper carries is that you didn't make it to the late game last time around. You kind of missed your opportunity for that. Generally, when I was on a team in the past, I would get blown out of the water in a Game 1 situation, and it did not happen often.
I was going to say, did that ever happen?
I saw your face. It did not happen often. I would generally draft around the early game to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Right. Well, Awesome Jake is doing exactly what he did last time again this time. This Terra Izanami lane looked great for the Olympus Bolts, and it is looking great yet again. They've reached level 2 first. Rapper has Shell, does not have beads. Barracuda just
surely
auto-attacking him on down.
There's no way.
Shell gets used, and that'll keep Rapper on the map for a little bit longer. Emilito had to use beads just a moment ago. Jake did use Blink, but 2 relics to 1 and a whole heap of health and difference gives the Bolts duo lane a bit of an advantage here. My goodness, this is just obnoxious.
Yeah,
they can't do anything.
They're bullying him. I mean, that's what happens when your ADC is forced to rotate into the jungle at level 1. Emilito doesn't hit 2 until like the first minion of this wave, and it leaves Rapper alone, loses out on the Shell, and 90% of his HP bar, and then Emilito comes back into lane with no beads and no chance to deal with that poke from the Bolts.
All right, so if the Olympus Bolts can keep this pace up, which Awesome Jake wants to do, you'd have to imagine there's a kill somewhere around the corner here. For the next 103 seconds, there's no beads for Emilito. I don't know what happened to Zeros here in mid. By the way, Lasbro was positioned prior to going back. You have to assume the Cirquette just kind of walked at him. And so it was, what, a 10-kill, 0-death game from Laz there in game 1. And now he gets Cirquette. Miff, there's not a whole lot of drop-off, I think, from a Lasbro Osiris to a Lasbro Cirquette. I think I have very similar confidence in both picks.
I think I'd say I'm more confident in his Cirquette gameplay as Jake does dash in, but does not find the stun.
Oh my. Barracuda just a couple autos away. Oh no, Emilito nearly goes down. I'm trying to think. I mean, I said in game 1 that I don't have a lot of data on Jake's Terra, because admittedly I don't. And I hope I'm not wrong in saying that. I mean, it's been a lot of Ymir, right? It's been Yamoja, Fafnir, Fenrir.
Sobek sometimes.
Sobek, like, Terra hasn't been one of his popular picks, I don't think. And apparently it looks really, really good, because this has been happening a whole lot. Another first blood escapes from Barracuda. Awesome Jake body blocked Raffer so well there to even open up that opportunity. Johnny attempting to help out his duo lane, but the only help he can do is watch as his purple buff gets stolen away. I mean, this is obnoxious, Myth. I mean, it is just Jake walking forward and Barracuda following up with auto attacks that make their way through waves, so you can't avoid them. And so the Valkyries duo lane has got an uphill climb. The good news is you've got a Jingwei who can come back to lane fast.
That's true.
Even if you get pushed back.
Even if you die.
Even if you die. So that's at least a bit of a silver lining. And Ducky's got a 1-level lead here over Haddocks. And so the Helm feeling comfortable early in this one.
And you know what? If both duo laners die, Jingwei respawns first, flies in a lane. Defender of Olympus is going to get you in a lane as well. Valhalla
Nice.
Valkyries.
That's value.
Yeah, they've drafted well around getting shoved in inside of the duo lane. And
are you telling me the Valkyries drafted the fastest ways to get back to lane after dying, Myth? That is brutal.
No, that's not. I mean, like, it is what I said, but it's not what I meant.
Not what you meant. Got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
but I did mean it.
Understood. Well, we've reached the point in the game now where the supports are going to start to rotate out. Raffer makes his way to the mid lane. Awesome Jake level 4. And that was a trend we saw pretty early and often where Jake was equal or ahead of levels of everyone on the Valhalla Valkyries and the Terra. Just stacked up that damage so heavily for the Olympus bolts and helped things like a 15-minute fire giant. Could be first blood around the corner. Ducky takes the ultimate from Haddocks and is trapped right inside. Will use the cleanse, but there's a stun on the other end. A little bit of damage avoids Lasbra here. Johnny and Raffer are both close by. Venenu's let through space and time go, but it didn't connect onto anyone. And so first blood still goes searching.
Yeah, Lasbra not being level 5 there means that there's not a whole lot of damage he can deal to Ducky, who is able to use Feeds and Cleanse to walk out of the Tremors. If he didn't have both of those, likely dies in just the CC itself, and immediately the bolts off the rotation from Ven spot out. A huge collapse for the Valks.
Awesome Jake doing what he does best. It's an invade on the red buff. Zeros and Raffer are collapsing with Emilito, though. This is, remember Jake died by aggressively diving at Tier 1 tower. He gotta die here. Gotta be first blood for the Valhalla Valkyries. It won't be. Awesome Jake will get the big root. He'll dash away. And won't be a kill for either team. But that feels like one that got away from the Valks.
Yeah, Melito does have the ultimate available there. Maybe could have used the airstrike to chase that one out, but cautious play seems to be the name of the game here. And the Valhalla Valkyries, again, do have a composition that hits its stride in the late game. So no pressure on them to establish pressure inside of the early. That said, kills like that you kind of want to pick up, especially with Jake essentially handing it over, completely inside of the jungle, walking into your purple buff. But Jake is going to make his way out this time around. Valhalla Valkyries, though. Draugr picked up, so that tower that they've been getting dove inside of is suddenly stronger.
And the levels have evened out between the supports and the hunters. That's such a good point to remember as this game goes on, is that the composition conversation you were having is, although kills like that get away from the Valks, it's okay, because it's later on when this composition will be hitting a little bit harder. And it's the Olympus Bolts who want to continue to push some of that pressure here early on in the game. We're 6 minutes in, 500 gold in the lead of the Bolts. We were in a much worse position if you're the Valkyries in game 1.
So much worse.
At this point. Greater Scorpion is going to get started up here, and that's going to open up the Gold Fury, which was an early pivot point, remember, for the Bolts there in game 1. They quickly rotated over to it, looked at the objective, took it down, and the gold just started spooling up from there. So maybe we start to see a grouping in a couple minutes' time around the Gold Fury.
Yeah, I expect so. Neither team really has a massive advantage at this point of the game, so Olympus Bolts were the aggressors in game 1 around the Gold Fury, but maybe with 500 gold in the lead, aren't feeling nearly as confident in their ability to do so at this point in the match. But if we see early rotations from the Cabrakan out of Soul Lane, that could open up the door. Cabrakan certainly hits his power spikes a little bit more quickly than Hell does, so maybe Haddocks has his eyes on that. But as of right now, I think that Gold Fury spawning up is just if we find a pick, maybe we go to it. If we don't find a pick, well, we will later, and then we go to it.
I think this is going to be such an important communication building and smoothing out game for the Olympus Bolts, because you talk about an Athena that has global pressure, a Ratatosker out of the jungle who has that semi-global mindset. There's going to be a lot of moving pieces in this team fight that the Olympus Bolts are going to have to keep track of. So I think you talk about a team trying to smooth things up going into the Phase 2 playoffs. This type of composition might help work out some shot calling issues.
Yeah, it could keep you on your toes a little bit. And I think that by nature of the draft that the Valkyries have, both Athena and Ratatosker kind of thrive on that initial dive. They want to get in and deal their damage. But the rest of the draft, being late game hyper carries and a healer, means that the Valkyries are kind of looking for these elongated engagements. So it is a little bit interesting to see how this one pans out. Last time we saw a Ratatosker, it was that hidden blade, tactical nuke style.
Yeah, it was a lot of damage.
I do not think that's exactly what Johnny's going to be looking for here, but if he goes towards that bruiser build, I think it's going to synergize very well with the composition.
Wow, it is a Gold Fury pull early here
so
from the
raw.
Olympus Bolts, and it is Awesome Jake and Barracuda doing it now. Venenu joins in, Lazara's in as well. Emilito close by, but will not steal it away. He's gotten a lot of damage, though, onto the Olympus Bolts. Oh, it's a nice lockdown, and Emilito gets first blood here in this game. Awesome Jake makes it out of the portal. Not as clean as it could have been. Still a Gold Fury for the Bolts, but Emilito on board with 1 kill.
Man, Ven just can't help himself today, Dave. He is dropping the into for the Olympus Bolts. The only death, 100% deaths,
Yep,
not
you're not
just
wrong.
for his team, but in the game. That's embarrassing.
Is it?
I'd say so.
It is. No, I mean, you're right. There's no two ways about it. 100% of the deaths
Binary
is-
scale. Is it embarrassing? Yes or no?
Yes.
I'd say yes.
And it's a binary scale in the deaths column. 0 for everyone, and then 1 for Ven. So it's binary all over the place here. Venenu on the Giannis here helped out. Some of his teammates in escape there. So you look at a moment like that, though, Miff. Maybe you call it a wash. I mean, it's early Gold Fury that spreads out gold pretty evenly to the Olympus Bolts versus kind of that 500 gold infusion to Emilito.
Yeah, I'd say it's about even. I mean, the Olympus Bolts were 500 gold ahead going into that, and they're about 400 gold ahead coming out of it, so maybe even slightly in favor of the Valhalla Valkyries, who were able to at least strip away some of those neutral camps on the map. But now with the Gold Fury removed from the map, it means that neither team really has a way to push their lead if they are able to find picks. And with Gold Fury removed, it means that the Bolts can allocate a little bit of their attention more so towards this solo lane. And when there's a hell inside of the solo lane, that's kind of where you want your attentions to be.
Yeah, I wonder how then anti-heal starts to factor into the conversation here for the Olympus Bolts. Johnny may be considering chasing down Haddocks. Is waiting around the corner here. Blue buff is going to spawn here shortly. Remember, Johnny on the Loki did not make Haddocks' life easy on the blue buff there in game 1. Raffer drops down the red buff, will secure it for his team. Awesome Jake could have a root around the corner. Instead, there is so much damage from Barracuda and Awesome Jake combined. Haddocks has received a dive from Johnny, and Raffer rotates to the right side of the map. So it's going to be a blue buff for the Valhalla Valkyries. Nearly a 2 versus 3 kill, though, for the Olympus Bolts on left.
Yeah, just a ton of damage coming from that Earthen Fury Dark Portal combo. Means that the dual lane of the Bolts have found themselves a good deal of pressure. Luckily, we already talked about it, Jingwei. If she dies or if she's forced back to base, can get back very quickly. If it were any other god, this tier 1 tower would have gone down.
Unfortunately, Emilito loses every single minion from that wave. Maybe just got the XP and a little bit of gold from the last one, but...
They want him dead.
I was going to say, he will get the farm from this next wave, but without knowing where Jake and Barracuda are, takes a step back beneath his tier 1 and tier 2 tower before going back. Purple buff is going to come up here, and that's going to open things up for the Olympus Bolts to take away. Let's try to keep Emilito after a first blood as far behind as we can. Gets dropped down and picked up by Awesome Jake. So a successful purple buff invade here by the Olympus Bolts. And Emilito just, I think, doing the best that he can here in this lane. When you don't know where Jake and Barra are, who nearly one-shot you just a moment ago, you have to play ever cautious on a pick like this.
Luckily for Emilito, though, he's actually in the lead in both experience and gold against Barracuda. I believe gold. Yes, gold and experience. So he's feeling pretty good on this Jingwei as of right now. And the Olympus Bolts have made a very clear emphasis on how they're looking to play this match. It's been Awesome Jake and Barracuda sticking together, attached at the hips, if you would, whereas Raffer's kind of maneuvering the entirety of the map and just trusting that Emilito on this Jingwei is going to be able to play safely inside of the lane. And when he's just not splitting as much farm as Barracuda is, so experience and gold are going to continue to grow in his favor.
Maybe, Nif, that's why we see a bit of a different starter item start here from Emilito. The mindset is, let's sit back, get as much extra gold as we can, and find our way into the late game. Because Jingwei is not a pick that we've seen all that often in Phase 2 here of Season 8. But a lot of the bow build mentality, I guess, could still make its way into the conversation there for Jingwei. Pyromancer gets started up, reset here by the Valkyries. I guess you kind of have to play that way. Against the Bolts, there's a sudden jump in, dive on you, kill you off play style like we're going to see happen to Johnny right now. Venenu sends a whole lot of damage his way. The kill will not be completed, but the Ratatosk are out of the fight nonetheless. Venenu had just used his through space in time, so no damage to follow up on the range from Johnny. But that's what I mean. You got to be careful because a Kabrakan stun and a little bit of damage from Venenu will get you killed.
It looked like the Valhalla Valkyries call to reset that Pyromancer once Ven rotates on that top right-hand side of the mid camp, and I don't think the Bolts even knew Pyromancer was pulled. It was just a little bit of a cautionary call. And at the end of the day, the Valhalla Valkyries are able to go back and pick up a Pyromancer for themselves. So now neutral objectives net even. 1 for 1 so far for either of these teams, with Valhalla Valkyries get the first blood and completely even up this match, even pulling experience in their favor.
Well, or even the Valhalla Valkyries have stemmed the bleeding from game 1, and they've kept things even with the Olympus Bolts. 3 minutes from now in game 1, Bolts secured a Fire Giant that would end up ending the game just a few moments later. So the Valkyries looking much, much better here in this one. Unfortunately, Barracuda is able to get a decent amount of damage onto Emilito as the fighting continues. Emilito's going to have to back off, but Xingwei and that passive can make their way back to lane. Tier 1 tower does end up going down into left. So difficult to box with an Izanami, especially with where the build is for Barracuda. Similar builds, but with that big burst of damage from the Dark Portal, hard for Emilito. Raffer closing the gap here, Myth, because could be a Primal Fury around the corner.
And it looks like the Bolts are doing what they've been doing this entire match, which is setting up ganks around corners. It's Lazra in first with a taunt, and Johnny dropped down to just below 50% HP. Could spell the start of this Gold Fury, especially as indicated by Haddocks, making the rotation over, but instead, it's a reset. It seems like the Bolts really want to find that pick first.
Instead, the Valkyries are not going to give that chance, at least not without the Primal Fury being taken quite low here. Dash in from Rapper, but it's traded out by Asa Shake, who drops his ultimate. Up to the sky goes Johnny. Ducky caught in the ultimate from Haddocks. Barracuda dunked on by the Ratatasker, but he'll be able to dash away. Venenu lets his damage fly as well. And so little damage connecting onto the front line here, the Valhalla Valkyries, but it's actually Myth, the Valkyries who are a bit healthier going back for the Primal Fury.
It's all that health sustain. Haddocks gets taunted in yet again, but no follow-up this time around. The DR does keep him out of harm's way for the time being, and Lazra, the rotation around, kind of spooks the Valkyries off. I mean, Lazar clears out the wave, the Valkyries spot him in lane and say, look, if we start this fight again, Cirquette's going to have the flank. The majority of the Bolts had already reset and got their mana and HP back, so the Valkyries, despite having the sustain advantage, are playing very slowly around this Primal Fury. It's another pull from Raffer, and the Bolts have to respond.
Little sustain for both teams here. Awesome Jake providing a lot of it for the Olympus Bolts. Primal Fury started yet again. Jake will drop down one of the pillars here. It is slow. This one's not going down quickly. The walls go up from Awesome Jake as Haddocks separating thing out on the right, and the Primal Fury gets taken away by the Olympus Bolts. And the fight, on the other hand, doesn't look like it's going any better for the Valhalla Valkyries. It's Awesome Jake that walks in, steals away the objectives, and now the Valkyries have to scatter in the wind.
Haddocks still has his ultimate, so Raffer, you better believe you're getting locked down. Ben, credit for this one.
And it's a stun onto Haddocks to keep things interesting here, but the tower won't finish the job. 0 cents of damage out, and he gets it before he flickers away. So the Valkyries don't go down without a fight. They trade the kills 1 for 1, but they would have loved to have gotten that Fury. Instead, Awesome Jake makes a play.
Yeah, I think it was 134 damage from the second ability of this Terra that's able to confirm that objective for the Olympus Bolts. And sure, you could say the Valhalla Valkyries don't have the best confirmation inside of their entire team comp. I mean, maybe Ducky's third ability in Dark Stance is the hardest hitting thing you've got insofar as burst, but entire burst and 134, that is just unfortunate timing for the Order side team, and the Olympus Bolts are able to re-establish their lead. Now 1,000 gold up, and experience starting to equalize itself as well. The Valhalla Valkyries are actually benefiting from a lot of level leads across the board, but a lot of them get closed up. So it's 1 level for Awesome Jake on the side of the Bolts. Barracuda actually pulls his lead back as well, 1 level in the Hunter role, but the jungle and soul lane, a different story. 2 levels for Ducky and 1 for Johnny. If I'm the Valhalla Valkyries, I think it's pretty clear where I want to fight. It's wherever Ducky is.
Yeah, you got to fight around Ducky here, because you look at then the conversation around anti-heal and what this hell is going to provide. I want to watch this 1v1. Emilito dashes in. When you got the assistance of Raffer, things become a little bit easier. 3 seconds on the beads for Barracuda. Might have to get used on cooldown here. Dark Portal's found Emilito, but he does not have tower aggro. But Lasbra jumps on and nearly gets the kill on Emilito. How does Barracuda survive? Well, Venenu helping him out there. Blink forward from Johnny, but a dash away from Barra keeps the Izanami on the map. The Olympus Bolts close that gap just as quick as the Valkyries do.
Man, Ven plays that so well. The portal to peel for his boy, but maybe has to pay for the sins of his teammates, forced to retreat into his tier 2 tower thanks to the rotation from Zeros.
Lasbra still chasing down Raffer here. This will be a kill on the other end, and so finally a kill falls in this big skirmish that's happening, and it's 1 for the Olympus Bolts. And Lasbra on board with his first. Johnny now might feel like he's got a chance to fight here. Stun is there, but beads good from Lasbra and the leap away. We'll keep things equal in the kill department.
So 1 for 0 off an attempted dive from the Valhalla Valkyries, and I like it. I like seeing them try and utilize some of their aggression on the map, utilize that global presence from iRaptor, but it's pretty hard to shut down an Izanami when she has both of her relics available as well as the ultimate, and once Emilito was hit by that dark portal, he was not allowed to remain involved inside of that fight. I think he would have very much liked to have used that airstrike aggressively, but not going to be the case, and well, they do at least burn away some of those utility tools.
Yeah.
I mean, Barracuda is now susceptible to that gank if the Valhalla Valkyries would like to reprise that performance. So Barra should likely have to play safe for the next couple of minutes, but it's still going to be very difficult. He is very far ahead.
Yep, completely opposite in the actives department, where Zeros and Emilito have both of theirs. Neither of the carries for the Olympus Bolts have theirs. Will that slow down the Bolts around this Pyromancer? It's not going to slow down the Valkyries, that's for sure. Valkyries have been more objective-focused here in this game. Had one stolen away. Barracuda has to dash away. Remember, no actives on that Izanami. If Johnny can find a dunk into the back line, we'll make things interesting. Instead, it's Haddocks on the front that gets jumped on by the Ratatasker. Awesome Jake spreads out that cursed dunk, and now the Valkyries run.
Now it's the re-engage from the Olympus Bolts if they so choose, but maybe not the best fight for them to take. Ducky making sure the entirety of his team sits topped off in the HP. Pyromancer dropping low.
Jake
do it?
No, not again, not again. Valhalla Valkyries make no mistake around this objective. Get a little bit of extra gold back for themselves here. I mean, I guess you admire the fight choice there from the Valkyries because of the state of the actives of the Olympus Bolt. You got to try to jump in and find it. But probably would have been too risky for Johnny to dunk into the back line there. And again, that goes back to the conversation of this composition for the Valkyries, where you're feeling good as the game goes on. Zeros is going to swing. Emilito's going to swing as well. So we don't need to force fights that we're not totally confident in.
No, not at all. And the Valhalla Valkyries are actually doing a very good job of elongating these neutral objective fights, just really utilizing the healing from their hell. Worth noting, take a peek at the builds here from the Olympus Bolts. It's actually awesome Jake 408 who picks up the Divine Ruin. Yanis from Ven, not exactly the best applicator of anti-heal. Jake, on the other hand, kind of locks down the entirety of the jungle with his third ability to at least proc some anti-heal there. Earthen Fury will also proc it as well, so I like that pickup for him as well, and in conjunction rather with the Ankh. It is going to make it a lot harder for the Valkyries to win out inside of these fights, but it's all about that initial engagement for the Bolts. If you use that Ankh, you got to win the fight there.
Yep. So that's some of the anti-heal alongside what you mentioned now about the Ankh. And so if the Olympus Bolts can make high-value work of that in these next few fights, their life will be a little bit easier. Oni Fury respawns here. The Valhalla Valkyries, as I mentioned around the Pyro, have not shied away from an objective mindset here. Unfortunately, they might not get the chance if this fight works for the Olympus Bolts. It's a well-timed flicker from Zeros to get over the wall that Haddocks had laid down. Up in the air is Johnny. What's his target choice? What's the front line? He's got a double knockup. Awesome Jake might go down here if the damage connects, but he's walking on a way, takes a portal, and Awesome Jake survives. And the Valhalla Valkyries poured a lot to get that kill. It's a taunt in from Rapper to keep things interesting. Jake. Johnny does end up getting the kill onto Awesome Jake, but it took a minute. Lasbra will trade things back. The Ratatasker Mifflin starting to swing.
It's 2 for 1 in favor of the Valkyries for now, and Haddocks finds himself in no man's land. If Johnny can find that stun, could make the rest of the team catch up in time.
Barracuda has to dash away. Johnny looking for his third, and Johnny will get his third. It's a triple kill for the Valkyries. Jungler, no quad. Emilito takes it, but it's a fantastic fight for the Valkyries nonetheless, and their eyes are on FG.
The Valhalla Valkyries might not be able to make it to playoffs, but they can certainly put a damper on the Olympus Bolts run. Fire Giant being looked at, 4 members still alive, and only Lasbra and Jake drawing breath right now. Nobody in range to put up a defense here, but it's slow. You might be able to see Lasbra try a steal.
Yeah, not having Zeros for this objective burn, especially with the Ob Shard, makes this a little bit slower for the Valhalla Valkyries. Lasbra is in range. Will he go for it? Gets taunted in by Rapper. Fire Giant falling slowly, and does end up going down for the Valhalla Valkyries. It's a nice taunt in from Lasbra, but he'll have to immediately dash away. Suddenly the chase is on. Johnny's got his ult back. Could be a kill onto Laz, who sidesteps the dunk, and then a portal from Venenu has been there. And that keeps his jungler on the map.
Now it's the re-engage. Jake finds 2 at the root. Earthen Fury on 3.
Venenu does not have through space and time. That's been down large part to engage or disengage. Haven't seen a lot of big burst damage from that just yet this game. The Olympus Bolts realizing that without having gone back yet, did I say that right? Without having gone back yet, there we go. Valhalla Valkyries might have some extra gold that they can go back and spend. So you try to play them before they can go back and spend is what I'm really trying to say. And with that space, the Olympus Bolts will at least get an Oni Fury.
Without having gone back, there's like a prepositional phrase in there. I think you just put it.
I think that's right.
No, yeah, you got it. You're not wrong.
I don't know if I said without or with.
I'm not sure if you're right, but you're definitely not wrong.
Okay, perfect.
And that's the best way
that's
to be.
That's where I live.
That's
right.
That's that ephemeral, ethereal land
that's right.
between truth and a non-truth.
That's where I live.
Yeah, you're good at it too.
Oh, thank God. That's one of the only things I'm good at. The Olympus Bolts, they do get the Oni Fury. Yeah, that. Oh, thanks, Miff. Appreciate it. Happy to have you here with me. The Valhalla Valkyries, they're working with 5 FG buffs here, Miff, and they are in the lead by about 600 gold or so. Not massive just yet, but they are in the lead nonetheless. XP has continued to trend in their favor, largely around Ducky, largely around Johnny, who on this Ratatoskers looks good. Raffer will use his ultimate, not allow him to escape. And maybe it's a low commitment there for the Bolts to get the ultimate out of Raffer.
It is, but they do have to commit their bodies to the right-hand side of the map, whereas Raffer was just trying to clear out some waves and then rejoin his team either way. So it's this large grouping from the Valhalla Valkyries on the left hand. Tier 1 tower goes down for free, but look at the Bolts. I don't think they want this Tier 2 to be as easy.
Awesome Jake does not have his ult ready to go just yet, but will, as I finish this sentence, portal on through space and time, clip zeros, and that is a whole lot of damage. The Merlin cleaned up by the guy who set it up, and it's Veneno on the board first, but look at Emilito on the back. He has weaved in so much damage. Unfortunately, the sustain now missing for the Valhalla Valkyries as Ducky takes the tumble. Haddocks still walking forward, has blink, does not have his ultimate. Taunt through from Raffer, slows this down, resets the blink as well.
And now it's all about that chase. Lazarus in first, looking for the taunt, and he finds it.
Oh, he's got it. Emilito uses the beads, and through the portal around the backside goes Haddocks, and it's a stun onto Emil. 3 of the FG buffs now off the map. The Olympus Bolts, they never second-guessed themselves. They chose a fight, and they win it.
Yeah, that's the classic hurry win condition. He's not in this game, but his win condition is we're in the late game, pseudo-late game, 24 minutes in, and our Yanis hit a hyper carry with his ultimate. So Zeros, removed from the fight almost immediately, finds no value with this Merlin and is immediately removed from the engagement, and the Bolts surge forward after that. Ducky dies to the dot damage from Lazarus' ultimate and isn't able to heal himself or his team. At that point, the Olympus Bolts from the brink able to defend their Tier 2 tower, and that paltry gold lead that the Valkyries had now belongs to the Bolts on the other side.
Yeah, what you don't want to see in the top left of your screen if you're a Valkyries player or fan is negative XP differentials and negative gold differentials when when you're on the Fire Giant power play. Things going the opposite direction is rarely a good thing. You wondered, though, because, you know, the Valkyries win a big fight there in mid. You could just tell by the poise, though, of the or the positioning and kind of the general vibe of the on the map here from the Bolts that they were not going to shy away from a fight. And Awesome Jake just kind of walks forward, and the rest of the team follows up on a good ult there by Ven. And that's an important trait to have, right? I mean, towing that line between giving up too much and choosing when to fight when the other team gets FG.
It is, and now FG spawning in just under a minute means that the Bolts likely aren't going to try and let the Valkyries have this one yet again. Bolts find themselves in both the experience and gold lead, so should be able to be the aggressors here on the Fire Giant itself. But it is the Valhalla Valkyries pulling the Pyro, but Ducky pretty far forward.
Jake looking for it once more. The Olympus Bolts will just quietly take it away. It's a great wall from Haddocks. Disengaged, though, by the Valhalla Valkyries. Ducky getting taken low here. Athena drops in. Will the prots be enough? No, they won't. Lasbra gets the kill. Johnny is all alone with all of the Bolts, and Barracuda puts him in the dirt once more.
Ducky can't act as a frontliner because this is what happens. Dies, but Barracuda almost trades his life to Emil.
Oh, man, all of the health bars are red, and there's only one left on the map, and it's Zeros. The Olympus Bolts clean this up. And, hey, timing works out pretty well here, Miff. Fire Giant respawning.
They're going to pick that one up absolutely for free. Had they exposed the Phoenix before this, they may have been able to look for the end of this game, but 5 towers still standing for the Valkyries because there's 5 gold caches to be collected by the Olympus Bolts after they are able to pick up this Fire Giant, and you can see the confidence in their positioning already. Lasbra says, I don't need to be there. They can do it on their own. No way Zeros is looking for a steal, so instead goes ahead to split up the map. Now, What are the Bolts going to do after winning such a massive team fight? It's not go back to base. They're going to push the lead.
I mean, those respawns, I mean, they're coming back up, the Valkyries are, but you got 8 seconds on Johnny, 15 on Emilito. I mean, this is not super short, but I think the right call here from the Bolts. Will take down the right side tier 2, open up that Phoenix, then we can go back and buy and regroup. Lazarus put on a clinic here in this set. It was 10-0 in game 1. He's now 4-0 on the Circuit. Has affected 9 of the 10 kills that the Bolts have had. It's exactly the turnaround you want from your jungler after what was a tough set yesterday.
And it's essentially a full damage build for this Circuit as well. He's not really that much of a bruiser. He's got Void Stone, but that's really about it. Insofar as defense, if he does go Protector of the Jungle, will get some percentage defense from that if he upgrades his starter that way, so should help him out a little bit with survivability. But how often have we seen Lazra use ambush to get into the back of these team fights and immediately drop the ultimate on the Ducky? Generally, that's where the response should be. Oh, he's stuck to our hell. Let's throw all our damage at our own hell. I mean, Zeros can put out a ton. Raffer can set it up. Even Johnny finds easy stuns off the back of it, but 4-0-5, clearly there has not been a response to it. Lazra going unpunished so far.
The Olympus Bolts, they can sense, they can smell a first round bye in the Phase 2 playoffs just around the corner. This win will secure the Olympus Bolts first or second seed in the Phase 2 playoffs, and that means they won't have to play in round number 1. They'll get a bye into round number 2. All about just cleaning up this game and sending the Valkyries home on a tough loss to end their phase. Everyone's got Fire Giant buff. You've got it for 2 minutes and 15 seconds. And I've loved the way that the Bolts have played around Venenu here in this game as well. I mean, plenty of portals have saved the lives of his teammate, as Raffer will use his ult to get out. But it also feels like it's been a multifaceted Giannis play in every way that you want it, where sometimes you see a game that only ends up all the portals and all the ultimates get used defensively. You got to get out. We've seen a lot offensively. We've seen a lot defensively. Haddocks has taken those portals instead of blinking. Little things like that show great communication. And admittedly, Miff, you talked about it. It's a pick that's not wildly popular for Ven, but it's looked pretty good.
Yeah, I think that Ven, when he has had the opportunity to play Giannis in the past, has seen very good success on it. It's certainly a god that is firmly within his god pool, but generally is looking towards a couple of those other picks more often than not. But as you said, man, some of these utility portals have been incredibly impressive. There was a fight a while back. You said, how did Barracuda live? Well, it's because Ven's put in the work.
Yeah, Ven's put in the work. I like that. Utility portal. That was a much shorter and cleaner way of saying what I was trying to say a second ago. And I'm going to steal that one from you at some point in the future.
All I have, man. Please don't.
All right. I will never use utility portal.
Thank you.
Maybe if I had an S on like his utility portals, it's slightly different. All right, one final team fight maybe from the Olympus Bolts in a first round bye in the Phase 2 playoffs. Emilito is melted through here, but the Olympus Bolts don't have the redive. Johnny goes up and down onto Lazbra, but Lazbra's winning that fight. He's on a rampage to close out the game here. Emilito airstrike defensively into the fountain as Ducky continues to get whittled away. Raffer will live on, so the Valhalla Valkyries still have 4.
Only 1 kill so far for the Olympus Bolts, with the left side Phoenix does fall down as well. Ven baits his team, says, hey guys, take this portal. Instead, takes it himself. Seems like Haddocks not too happy about that one.
Self-utility.
5 versus 4 in favor of the Olympus Bolts. Fire Giant on 1, and Lazbra finds himself isolated, but it's just Raffer, and Raffer is not.
Yeah, I don't know if Lazbra's sad about that. Lazbra wants to get taunted in right now. Mid lane Phoenix goes down for the Olympus Bolts, and their eyes turn towards right. There is a half wave pushing in with the rest of the Valhalla Valkyries minions there, so the Olympus Bolts definitely can take advantage of that. But Fire Giant falls off right now, and so I think the call for the Bolts here is back off. 1 more FG and we'll win the game.
So what was that, like a 7,000 positive swing for the Bolts off their Fire Giant power play? The Valhalla Valkyries went like
on both Fire Giants.
4,500.
One that was the Bolts and one that was the Valkyries. The gold lead has become the Bolts.
Nice.
Yeah, it's not evened out at all. The Olympus Bolts.
17,000 gold?
Woo! Oh my.
25,000 experience.
Honest to God, look at that gold graph. And I'm sorry, Doug. I know you just flicked away from it.
He's not pulling it back up.
We are dead even in every facet of the game for 25 minutes. That is on the midline. You know, maybe a 1,000 or 2 on either end. Yeah, sometimes the Valks are up. We are dead even for 95% of this game, and in the last 5 minutes, 17,000 gold and 24,000 XP has shifted its way into the Olympus Bolts pockets.
And this is a late game draft for the Valhalla Valkyries.
Well, that's what we kept saying, right?
The Valks got them right where they want them right now, but unfortunately the Bolts similarly have them right where they want them. Johnny finds awesome Jake in the jungle, and Jake probably won't kill Johnny, but Johnny definitely won't kill Jake.
Yeah, sometimes a better composition at certain states in the game just loses if the opposing team is playing better. Right now, awesome Jake has got to make me not regret that statement by getting out of 5, which he will. Fire Giant's going to spawn here in just a moment. It'll be enhanced. And this is always such a difficult decision because, you know, you're 17,000 gold down and 2 Phoenixes. And it's only Raffer that's there trying to deal with those waves. He'll use his ultimate now to get back into this fight. Do you contest? It looks like the answer is yes.
Yeah, they essentially have to. I mean, we saw what the defense looked like, and it was not good.
Ooh, awesome Jake taunted on through and pulled on back. Through space and time, gets some decent damage there, but Veneno and Barracuda, they're operating with full health bars. You can't say the same for Zeros because Lasbra has found that kill somewhat cleanly. And without a Merlin, might be without a chance around this enhanced Fire Giant.
Speaking of enhanced
no.
minion waves starting to work their way into the base.
Oh, no.
So Valhalla Valkyries are going to have to send somebody back, and if you're sending back Ducky, well, he's the best piece of your puzzle here. He's your team fight, he's your sustain, he's your burst damage. He was your chance.
Maybe the only one who can clear those waves because you want Emilito in the fight. Dark Portal nearly hits its mark there. Barracuda narrowly misses a kill as Emilito rounds the wrong side of this team fight. The Fire Minions won't spot him out because he'll stick into the jungle. Back to the FG. Go the Olympus Bolts. Still 20 seconds on Zero's respawn timer, so just playing around. And look, this may be the best that the Valkyries could do is delay this Fire Giant as long as you can.
It could be maybe a steal.
Emilito never went back.
Cards here. Johnny trying to work his way in, but Haddocks certainly good enough to keep him locked down.
Emilito is still here. He is still on the speed buff right now, and
Cruising.
Raffer ends up dying to Lasbra. Speed was up. You're absolutely right. Emilito picks up the enhanced speed buff and ends up going back to base. There's no real chance. Oh, nearly Venenu gets some damage onto Johnny. That would have been a half-health Rat, though. Does that kill him?
I guarantee Raph from the Grayscale is like, yo, Johnny, it's coming, dude.
Watch
Get
out.
out of the way, bro.
Oh, he's in the Grayscale screen for another 40 seconds. Raffer might have called out a shot there for Johnny, and he might call out the end of the game for his team if the Olympus Bolts push this 5-man enhanced Fire Giant advantage into the base of the Valhalla Valkyries. Left side Phoenix has respawn, so that can be the first target here for the Olympus Bolts. But if Lasbra continues to tear through the Valkyries, if Veneno keeps setting up those portals, if Haddocks continues to be a stalwart front line, the Olympus Bolts will find their way into the second round of the Phase 2 playoffs. They make quick work of the Valkyries in Game 1. A little bit more tumultuous in Game 2, but it's a 2-0 win for the Bolts nonetheless.
Congratulations to the Olympus Bolts, who will be finding themselves a first-round bye within the playoffs. Impressive play across the board, barring Venenu. Yeah, that guy dropped an intel.
Are you saying his Giannis game wasn't good?
I'm saying he dropped an intel.
Say it again? An intel?
An intel.
No way. Game 2 was not an
intel mode.
Look, we meme on it in Game 1.
He went 3-2.
In
What
this
did
game?
Lasbra do?
Undying?
Yeah.
Undying. Yeah, all right, Lasbra kind of goes off here in this set, gives the Bolts an advantage in the Phase 2 playoffs. 2-0 for the Olympus Bolts to end their phase. We'll see them next weekend on Saturday. I think I'm telling you the wrong date, so I'm going to stop myself before I give you any more incorrect information. Phase 2 playoffs are next weekend for sure, and that's the next time we'll see the Olympus Bolts. 2-0 win over the Valkyries. We'll take a break, and then the desk will close out the day.
lightning from a clear sky. I wasn't ready to say goodbye. Ever since you left, there's nothing but a cloudy sky. And there's no day, there's only night. Now I'm sitting all by myself, trying to see the light in the dark.
Hey there, SMITE fans, Aggro here. Look, every single year, the SPL just keeps getting better. Season 7 was incredible, and in Season 8, I'm sure our players are going to take their game to the next level. But in order to do that, they're going to need the best gear they can get their hands on. And that's why I'm so excited to announce that the title sponsor for Season 8 of the SPL is Alienware. Yeah, that Alienware. Our players are getting the best of the best in computer gaming. These Alienware Aurora Ryzen Edition PC setups are insane. Not only will these be the PCs that the players will compete on once we are in studio, but Alienware is also providing one for each player at their home setup to make sure their practice is as good as possible. Now let's get down to brass tacks. The specs on these Alienware Aurora Ryzen Edition desktops are amazing. An AMD Ryzen 9 16-core processor.
That's a lot of cores.
That's plenty of processing power.
That's a lot of plenty of cores.
If you want to stream, this is the way to go.
I know a lot about my cores, so. I mean, Pilates, right?
64 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM.
What? Is that true?
That is true.
I mean, this thing has 64 gigs of DDR4 RAM.
Which you can do literally anything with.
Literally anything.
I've never had more than 16 gigs. That's quadruple the amount I have at home.
And one of the hottest commodities in the PC world, an NVIDIA GeForce 3090 graphics card.
Insane how much better this is than what I have.
The best graphics you really need, Ultra, of course.
Content's gonna look good.
What's the point of all the power if you can't see it? Players will also be using the Alienware 25-inch 240Hz monitors.
Man, when I load into scrims with this bad boy, I'm gonna feed so hard. And it's gonna be in perfect picture quality. We are so excited to be partnering with Alienware for Season 8 of the SMITE Pro League. And the best part is, this VIP treatment, it's not just for the pros. You too can get the best possible SMITE experience. Just go to smitegame.com/Alienware and use code SMITEAW to get special discounts on some of Alienware's best products. Thanks again to Alienware. Make sure you're following them on Twitter and Instagram. That's @Alienware on both platforms. And you can join their community at alienwarearena.com.
The Bolts get their victory, and you at home can also find a win by picking yourself up some fantastic Alienware gear. Again, smitegame.com/Alienware and use code SMITEAW on checkout, and you're going to be able to find that. Of course, you can follow Alienware on Twitter and Instagram @Alienware and join their global community at alienwarearena.com. But again, the link you want to go to for all the goods and services is smitegame.com/Alienware and use code SMITEAW. But Aggro, they look good, both because they have awesome Alienware gear and good monitors, but also because they get the 2-0 win, the Bolts secure themselves a top 2 spot here for the playoffs.
And look, the Valkyries did not make it easy here in Game 2. The Valkyries did a lot of things way better. I liked the Hell for Ducky. I think that was working fairly well. Johnny on this rat, why did it take him so long to go to it? He looked very comfortable on it through the early to mid game. They get a Fire Giant. Then things start to fall apart. But hey, you know, we take our small wins when you're a team that has been struggling as much as the Valkyries, and some small wins in that set to be sure. The Bolts stay nice and mentally tough, don't let it get to them, are able to bounce back and find their team fight victories and ultimately the win after one big fight that gets them fire. So overall, a good showing from the Valkyries, much better in Game 2, but the Bolts have been doing this to teams that have been much more successful than the Valkyries so far this year. They've been doing it to everybody.
I mean, Dave at one point actually brought up the graphs were brought up. I guess Doug brought up the graphs. Dave and Miff talked about it, where it was virtually even up until about 25 minutes, and we got to see things really skyrocket in favor of the Bolts. And guess what? You tend to take away the Osiris, but you can't take away the Lasbra, and he still showed up and had a phenomenal performance.
Yeah, 27,000 damage. Oh, that's for Barra. So that's that. I was gonna say 27,000 damage on Serket is crazy, but you know that's okay. We're working through it. Barra had a great game on the Izanami, no doubt about that.
Yeah, shout out to Barra's damage, though.
Yeah, exactly. Shout out to Barra's damage. Watch Lasbra's plays and Barra's damage, and you kind of get the best of both worlds there. Look, overall, if we've been saying it all of Phase 2, when Lasbra and Ven are looking really strong, it changes the entire dynamic of this team. The side lanes for this team have been good for a long time. You know, the Ven and Lasbra have been just that inconsistent sort of performance, but when they're on, they're fantastic. They've just been on this entire phase. They've been really, really impressive. And if that continues into Phase 2 playoffs, this Bolts team is going to be tough to stop.
This is a team that has been very hungry, as noted by the fact that they had a, 8-set win streak that they've been able to pick up. They have been able to find a lot of success so far here in Phase number 2. Of course, ending it off, this is the last that we'll actually see them for Phase 2 until the playoffs, so they've got a nice week to relax and figure things out there. And being top 2, once again, I mean, it's working similar to last time, depending on how the King set goes now and where they end up. Number 1 team gets to, I believe, choose their opponent once again, similar to last time, so winner of whichever set and the bottom 4 ends up happening. And that's a good position. The Bolts were in that, if you remember correctly, in the Phase 1 playoffs. It didn't necessarily pan out for them the whole way through, but it was a very, very lucrative position to be in.
Yeah, they went all the way to finals, looked really good. So if they get the opportunity to pick a matchup they feel like suits them a little bit better, then I think that's going to be a huge advantage for them in Phase 2.
Well, I'm sure they're happy about being able to win that set. In fact, we'll ask them. We've got Barracuda sitting by for a nice little post-game interview. Hey, Bear, how are you feeling?
Hello. I'm chilling, bro. That was pretty relaxing.
Yeah, so we cut to your camera at one point, and you were completely max relaxed. You were leaning back. You had your hands up. You didn't seem to have too many worries. And then, you kind of stressed us out for, 25 minutes in Game 2? What kept that so close?
I was never worried about it.
Never?
It's all content for the fans at this point. Anytime we make a misplay, it's just more content for the boys.
Yeah, you're thinking about it. You're trying to make it so that there is more SMITE available for people to watch.
Exactly.
You heard that today it was going to be the only set that we were going to be able to watch, and you knew what you had to do. But you're top 2, man. You're going into the playoffs next week. How does it feel to just know, I guess, the success? Like, you've met it twice in a row for the playoffs this year.
Honestly, I don't really care that much about us. Sorry.
Yeah, thanks, Bear.
You had a big build up there, and I just kind of pooped on it. I'm sorry. I don't really care that much about playoffs or seeding for it. I just care about winning it. I don't care what team we face at playoffs. It's just about winning the whole thing. And in my opinion, if you don't win the whole thing, you lose just in general. Second place just feels just as bad as third, fourth as fifth, sixth, in my opinion. So I just want to win. I don't care who we play against. I just want to win.
Well, hey, I'm excited to see if you're going to be able to do so next week. I'm sure you're excited that you only have 2 days now of play as opposed to having to go through every single team to get there. At least an easier path to the victory, or, easier. We'll see. Good luck, I guess, next week. But also just congratulations on your win and enjoy your night.
Thank you, Gore. Love you. Hope you have a good day.
Love you too, Bear. I hope you have a good day as well. But Agro, back over here, you do that every Sunday. That's a treat.
It's easy, yeah. And Bear's going with the old tried and true. If you ain't first, you're last. That's all that really matters to him.
And I think it's actually important to note, not just that, because winning playoffs is a big, I believe, bonus considerable for these guys, but also you're setting up the stage, at least for Phase 2 playoffs, going to Phase 3. That's the last time that we'll see them for, I think, a couple weeks after Phase 2 ends. And Phase 3 is when things really start to pick up, and that's when Worlds qualification starts to come into the equation.
Yep.
And so it's the last time that we get to see the Bolts for a week. We'll see how they end up faring over there. But that is not all of the SMITE that we have for you this weekend. We do still have at least one more day. Sunday. Leviathans and Scarabs, as well as the Dragons and the Titans. It is worth noting, once again, the Warriors-Kings game has been postponed. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at SmitePro. I believe, trust me, if it gets posted somewhere, you'll find it somewhere. But at SmitePro on Twitter is the best place to find it, and that is where we will announce when the Kings-Warriors game is going to happen. Because guess what? I mean, playoffs is still happening next weekend, so it's got to be sometime before then, you have to imagine. The Bolts, as of right now, standing as the lone team up at the top until the Kings get to play that. And they did do something very important, and that is put a little bit more separation between them and the Leviathans.
I mean, look, the Leviathans did great work yesterday, but with the Bolts finding their victory today, the Leviathans knew it was going to be a difficult battle to crack into that top 2. I don't know what the head-to-head is there between the Leviathans and the Kings, but I'm pretty sure the Kings are guaranteed top 2 at this point.
Yeah, I think so.
And they're going to be just fine moving forward. So overall, excited to see what we're going to see from the Kings whenever they do play, and wrapping up Phase 2 and its normal regular season play tomorrow. And then, of course, Phase 2 playoffs right around the corner.
Yeah.
Like, I can't these phases, they're both simultaneously long and gone instantly. Like it makes no sense.
I'd said it on Waiting Room, but if you think back to it, when we started this phase, boots were still in the game. That's like eons ago at the same time.
Again?
It's something
I don't know.
that we stuck with for years and years and years. But as you know, that's going to do it for us today. The Bolts take their win over the Valkyries. Tomorrow, 1 p.m. right here, we'll have more Smite for you. 11 a.m. if you want to tune in a little bit earlier for the SCC. Either way, from myself, from Aggro, and from everybody, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
Peach it.